Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Foul Play YouTube channel, Open Mic, number 168. Hope everybody's doing well after our almost marathon session there, Dr. Silkman, last night. Almost 6 hours on the Reading with the Crew.
We just got warmed up.
Well, we certainly didn't finish it because we didn't get to the video clips. So,
correct.
And I'm sure there's plenty more to discuss because thinking about convicting a murderer from the beginning, there's been. Well, hey, we got another guest here. We got Seppercop.
Convicting a murderer from the beginning.
You have to mute there.
There's been. Well, hey, we got another guest here. We got Seppercop. Convicting a murderer from the beginning.
Hey, Sapper.
There we go. There's Sepper. Now you muted. Okay.
He's unmuted his YouTube.
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us, Sepper. I was actually just getting started, so welcome.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out the volume.
Oh, yeah, I hear you.
Sound good?
Yeah, you're fine. So anyway, again, just for me, this is me personally looking at convicting from episode 1 to episode 9. It's been an interesting diversion. I personally haven't. I mean, other than the new things that weren't documented per se, I haven't learned anything new. It's really been really irritating with a lot of the things that I've heard that I just don't agree with. I just don't. And anyway, it's been and will be continuing to be an interesting thing to really go through kind of step by step and see where we get. Anyway, before we get too far on that, I want to welcome everyone that's in the live chat and certainly everyone that's here in Discord. We'll let everyone say hello right quick and maybe talk about anything you want to talk about. Then we're going to throw. I basically got 6 video clips. None of them are too long. They're a minute or two. I don't think there might be one that's over a couple minutes, but and they're really all around Adam FL, the bullet, because that was really kind of the focus of where I was driving to. I already had a couple, and then I thought I was talking to Dr. Soapman, and I was telling him I was going to get a few more, so that's kind of what I did. I was talking about the bullet and Sherry Culhane and the crime lab, just the whole thing. We'll get to it in a minute. Anyway, I want to say hello to Susan.
Hey, Jack. Hi, everybody. Happy Sunday. Monday morning, depending on where you are.
Yeah, definitely Monday morning for Doc.
Mm-hmm. All those Aussies and.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So more convicting, huh?
That's right. I just didn't see any need. I mean, we're probably going to get to it again at some point, weeks down the road. But I wanted to go ahead and share these since I already clipped them. We might as well talk about them and get it out of the way. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure we'll be getting back to the calls and depositions and so forth soon. But anyway, so thank you, Susan and Alice.
You bet.
Alice, how are you? Well, I know how you are. Not good.
Yeah, well, no, I've just done the thing that they tell me to do again, and so far, so good. It's booting up and everything, but yes, I was having a really bad day, but it's finally, hopefully, come back on. So now that it's getting there, I'm going to bloody get the computer on tomorrow, and I'm going to back up this bloody phone on the computer. Especially my pictures of the grandbaby, because that's what I was more annoyed at. Because my phone wouldn't bloody start.
Absolutely, get them things saved. You got to get them off to another device or in the cloud.
Exactly, Jack. Yeah, well, all my other saving things are all full with other stuff between documents from Stevens and Luke's and everything else, that I've accidentally downloaded and things like that. So it's all there. Sure. But I've got an actual external hard drive. So I should really maybe even try and get the a connector to connect it to my phone and just save everything onto the external hard drive, and then I know
That's
that
right.
it's blood there,
There you go.
Yeah. So the kids bought me an external hard drive either last year or the year before for my Christmas, and I think it's a 1 terabyte one. So there should be plenty space on that
yeah.
to be able to save my pics and stuff. So yeah.
That-
So fingers crossed the bloody phone stays on and stays working till I can get these bloody pictures off. But hello to everyone on panel, hello to everyone on chat. And we're going to have a good rant about a load of rubbish.
Well, it definitely should be interesting. I know it will be for me. All right, thank you, Alice. And then, of course, Dr. Soap.
Hey, Jack61, it's great to be here and welcome all the fellow panel members. Fantastic series of discussion yesterday, and I'm sure we're going to continue that today. And welcome everyone in chat. Fantastic.
Absolutely. Thank you, Doc. And then Cherie.
Hello. Hi, everybody, and welcome to Open Mic.
And we lost. Did we lose Sapper Cup? Oh, wait.
He says he's back, Jack. He dropped out.
There he is. Yeah, I got him.
Don't forget me.
Well, I saw you there a minute ago, and I'm like, hey, what the hell happened to Sapper Cup?
Yeah, I was trying to. I was trying to figure out the volume and ended up backing out of it somehow.
Oh, okay. No problem. Well, thanks for joining us, Sapper Cup. Your input's always valued, and I'm sure it will be tonight in these clips and different things we're going to talk about. You know, another thing about, convicting a murder that it's kind of became, I guess, a thing. It's had a lot of people question what was happening or what happened in making a murderer. And I understand that. I get it because, this is a whole different thing that they're really shown. But, I have to go back and think because I was around. A lot of people were around back when this became a thing. Convicting a murderer. Sean Reck is going to create this, balanced documentary, show you things that make you murderer did wrong and left out and all that. But and it is kind of that in a way, but it's really more than that. And I'm going to tell you, pretty much in a nutshell, what I've gotten so far. It's a view from a guiltless standpoint, and that's fine. They can believe whatever they want. People can have their own opinion. Not a problem with that. But it's a view from a guiltless standpoint that says Stephen Avery did some things when he was young, and that means he killed Teresa because he did some really stupid shit. And I call it stupid. It was criminal. Let's just call it what it is. But I go back and I think to myself, how is that proof that he actually did it? And I can't make that leap. I can't. Maybe some people can.
It isn't. And the goal of convicting is basically to take because remember, we're not the target audience, so they're trying to target folks who have not read the case files, who don't know anything about the case, who've only watched Making a Murderer, and they want to make sure those people know just how terrible Stephen Avery is, and that way it's easier to picture him as the murderer because he's this really terrible human being. Meanwhile, you're giving airtime and credibility to people that are way worse than Stephen Avery.
But I can pick out a bunch that have already been on.
Yep.
And I'm sure at some point we're going to call shade on them. I mean, again, it's just an opinion. Doesn't mean that I'm necessarily right or anyone else. It's an opinion. And, at the end of the day, how right do you want to be, in your arguments? And, I think I'm like anyone else, like you, Sapper. I want to state my opinion. I'm not going to get too terribly upset if you don't agree with me. I'm going to try not to be too angry, right? You just state what you know and try to, because that's a mistake that I used to make, years ago. I would get really invested in being right, This other person would be the same way. They're really invested in being right. And so it becomes a conundrum and nothing gets done except a big argument. And I don't want that. I don't think we should have it. I think that we should be far past that. State what we know and what we believe based on information we've taken in, and go from there.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I've been saying for a little bit now. Is we're 8 years into this case. I think we're beyond speculations and innuendos about what may or may not have happened. What I know is what didn't happen, and that's what I'm going to stick to from this point forward. When we talk about the bullet, we talk about the key, we talk about the RAV, we talk about the pit. I know those things didn't happen, so everything that comes in, especially from the state's perspective, that tries to say it did, I know they're lying. So I just don't give a lot of merit to arguments that go against that grain.
Yeah, another viewpoint for me, and it has been this way for a long time. Maybe it's an unstated viewpoint. I know that the guys have been convicted, but I've worked after we got the case files, and I read so much, and I heard phone calls, and I heard dispatch calls. My mind went to they're innocent. Now show me, prove them guilty with what we've seen at trial and everything else. So in my mind, I'm not working from a guilty to innocent standpoint. I'm working from an innocent standpoint, and I want them to prove them guilty with what we've been shown, and I can't get there. I can't make that jump.
Yeah, me either. Where there's been a lot of hot takes on the dog information in the fire pit lately. With folks going back and forth, and it's kind of I don't know. I'll call it disheartening to kind of see some of that, because it seems like there's folks that are trying to look at the state side when the state side has zero sense. It's completely nonsensical. It was from the start, but we did our best to try to see from the state's perspective and come around, but it can't happen. It's impossible. But people are kind of still try to take that approach, and I don't know. I think we're getting lost in the shuffle.
Right. That's what I'm saying about getting so invested. Go ahead, Alice. I'm sorry. I'll cut you off, and go ahead.
No, not at all, Jack. We've just because we've not done the chat yet, but I just want to mention we've got somebody new who's came in, and they're J for John, and they said, I found your channel on Reddit after I was looking at Cam's blog. Well, thank you very much for coming and joining us, Jay. It's nice to have you here with us. And at least I can say Cam has done something good, because it's got us some more viewers. So thank you very much, and welcome to Foul Play.
Hey, thanks for. I was gonna let you call his name's Duck.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And I agree with Sappercop. You have to look at all theories, hypotheses, and have a civil debate and discussion. But you also must be willing to accept the weakness of a particular hypothesis and not keep on debating it needlessly. Right? You've got to look at it in a logical manner. And Sappercop is correct. The dogs, both the cadaver dogs and the scent dogs, have really stirred up a lot in the community, and I reckon it's fantastic. As you know, guys, we've been working a lot on the Reading with the Crew chapter, and also Open Mic, looking at the canines. And the chapter that we have been looking at is all about canine noses. And I'll tell you what, isn't it remarkable that it's now gone full circle and everyone's talking about the dogs, which is fantastic.
Yeah, it is. It's crazy that this came back, and this conversation really blew up in episode 8 with the statement that Sarah Faust made, or it was more than a statement. It was a pretty long little thing there. But the thing with to me, these different opposing views, because they're pretty polarizing. If you just can't agree, it's just like agree to disagree and move on to another topic, because then it antagonistic, and that's what I'm talking about. Temperatures getting raised and flare-ups, and it's just not necessary at all. We're all adult, intelligent people at this point. I mean, I'm sure, there's still some flames and trolls out there that want to cause trouble, and I think we all see them for who they are. Call them what they are. You block them, mute them, or just whatever, because they don't really participate in the conversation. They want to cause trouble within that debate. But you also have some,
Sorry. Where is the StreamYard link? JD is trying to get in, I think.
It's in the open mic text room.
Open mic text room, JD.
Yep, right there at the very top.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Just
thank you.
before we get right into the chat, will I shout out who's in chat?
Please go ahead.
Right, okay. We've got Clive Coolidge. Hi, Clive. We've got Colette M. Hello, Colette M. Thank you for filling up the swear jar for me. We've got Passive Bear. Hi, Passive Bear. Great to see you. Under Your Scars. Lovely to have you with us. We've got JD, who is coming on panel. We've got Rodders. That's the new one. Hi, Rodders. Welcome to Foul Play. We've got Kelly McCallion. Hi, Kelly. Lovely to see you. We've got, let's see who else. We've got the Doc, who's on panel and in chat. We've got True Crime Fangirl. Hi, True Crime Fangirl. Great to see you. We've got the lovely Gloria. We have Anthony D. Hi, Anthony D. We've got my lovely friend, Willie Wooden Pallet, Pete Moss in the chat. We've also got Graham Moss in the chat. Hello, guys. We've got Nina Lennox. Hi, Nina. Nice to see you. We've got our star, who's in the credits of CAM. We've got our Scylla442. Hi, Scylla. Great to see you. We've got Emily Says. Hi, Emily. Great to have you with us. We've got Susan in chat as well as on panel. We've got Andy B, who was on the 6-hour marathon last night, so he's in bed listening. We've got Sapper Cop, who's in chat and on panel with us. We've got Steve Cobb. That's another new name. Hi, Steve. Welcome to Foul Play. Great to see you with us. Passive Bear. Rumour has it. Hi, Rumour. We've got the mad one, T1. Hi, T1. Great to see you in chat. Under Your Scars, Mr. President. Hi, Mr. President. We've got our newcomer, Jay, who I mentioned earlier. Let's see who else. I think that might be us. Behind the Magic. Hi, Behind the Magic. Justine J. Disco Pervert. Double D. We have our legal Travis in chat. Hi, Travis. And I think that's me got everyone so far. Oh, Double D. Hi there, Double D. Great to see you, all the usual suspects. Ronica's just slipped in the bottom there. Hi, Ronica. Great to see all the usual suspects. If I've missed your name, I do apologise, and we will get back to you on the next break that we have if I see you popping in. So thanks everyone for coming.
Excellent. Thank you so much for doing that.
You guys did 6 hours yesterday? Holy cow.
Yep. It was actually 5 hours and 45 or 50 minutes, wasn't it, Doc? Isn't it something like that?
Yeah, that's what my therapist told me.
Yeah, that's what my priest told me.
Exactly.
No, seriously, again, it's great to have a debate and a discussion, but understanding at this point, I think clearly we're still missing a lot of information that we can't seem to get our hands on, but it's still there. It's a lot of photos we can't seem to get. Electronic media we can't get in some form or another, whether it be a dispatch call or other phone calls. I'm in a kind of a conundrum right now with MTSO about getting more Jody calls. I know the existence. There's a lot of them. It's not just a couple. There are many, and I want to know what's on them. It may not prove a damn thing. it doesn't matter. I still want them to fill out the case better in my mind. I'll certainly be glad to share those with everyone, let them make up their own minds and decisions about what they hear. But I think they listen to them, and I'm talking about the state. And I'm sure that everything that was anything relevant got passed on to the prosecution. So the other side, everyone should be able to see that, hear that information as well. I think that's the only right thing, right?
I mean, from my perspective, we spent several years doing our best to try to make all different aspects of the state's story make sense. We tried to see, is there a way the story they told about the key is correct?
Yep.
You can't. And then the story with the fire pit, does any of that make sense? It doesn't. And so what essentially you reach a point where if it doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense. And I can't think of anything new that's going to come out that's going to make that make sense.
It would have been in trial to me.
Yeah,
they would have presented it already, right?
Yep.
So
you're not believing all their lame excuses, Sapper, that
oh God
are in CAM? They've addressed a lot of them.
Definitely not.
All they have is just lame excuses in my book.
Sorry, Susan. Steve Cobb in chat is asking, has anyone requested Brendan's calls? Brendan's calls are out there.
We did request them several years ago. We do have them, but Brendan asked us not to publicize them. We didn't, but others have.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, Jack. There is others out there. But Brendan has asked us not to, and to be honest, we're respecting his wishes doing that. But we do know that other people have put them out there. I'm not exactly sure where, maybe on Reddit somewhere or
YouTube.
One of the Facebook groups or
it's on YouTube. It's on YouTube.
Yeah. But we will not be doing Brendan's calls. Just out of respect for Brendan.
Yeah, there's been a few that I've extracted and played. The main one being the interview that Anjanette Levy did with him, which I thought was not good. But they did play some of that in episode 9. I was quite shocked about that, Doc, and everyone here. I was really shocked that they actually included that.
Yeah, me too. Because if you listen to that entire call, you realize just how evil Anjanette is.
It was terrible. It was absolutely an awful call, in my opinion. I felt that the first time I heard it. I'm like, why would she ask these questions the way she's asking them? And again, I can't prove it. It's just in my mind. This was something that she did for law enforcement. I can't prove that. Yeah. But it's like she was trying to catch him in a trap, right, Doc?
Yeah,
correct.
Exactly.
But if you actually have a look at Anjanette in the series, she actually looks very uncomfortable.
Very often she does.
Yes.
And I'm going to just speculate and guess here. This was done. I don't know when we don't know when, other than our own, we don't know when anyone else interviewed with the CAM, but I'm going to guess this was probably 2019, 2020 when she did her interviews. I don't know that, but anyway. Okay, so before I load this next clip, I'm not going to put anything else. I'm not going to put anything else up. I don't really have any documentation to share with anyone. Other than the clips that I've got ready. So if anyone has anything else, that reminds me, I forgot again. If there are any questions in the chat, please put a Q beside it. So Alice or Cherie or Susan or one, but I can't constantly watch the chat. I apologize. I'll try to, but put a Q in so it can get at least started, and then we can come back and answer your questions the best we can. Because that's a big part of it. Engaging with the live audience, because this is why we're doing it. We're trying to put out good information of what we know, and not withhold anything. Give our opinion. If people want. You don't have to give an opinion, but we typically do. We're pretty mouthy. So anyway, so please put a Q in.
Just to the point of having a Q, True Crime Fangirl Jack asked, I only watched episode 1. Did they ever show the satellite image of the yard the day of that wreck was tooting his horn about early on?
What day? Who was tooting their horn?
Sean Reck on Twitter was tooting his horn about a satellite image that was taken, and I think it was they took it by a drone. I think that's what she's meaning. Has anybody? I've no noticed a satellite image. Can you clarify that a wee bit, True Crime?
Are they talking about the drone footage that Sean was talking about? Because he was actually referring to Crivets. He took some drone footage of Crivets.
Oh,
Right.
that is in the show. Yeah.
Right. It might be that then. Yeah, it might be that she's on about then.
Probably.
I thought I seen another question. No.
Sorry, I had to mute for a second. We're deciding on dinner, and I apologize for that. Any other questions? Or did we get that settled? The drone footage? Is that what you guys were talking about?
Yeah, I think that's what TTM was talking about.
Yeah, there's some footage from up in Crivets, if you guys remember way back to episode 1 or 2 they were talking about, and there's some. It is drone footage, and I do remember Sean talking about using drones over that property. But this was, you're here in the last few years they did this. This is new footage. Doesn't have anything to do with back in 2005 or 6. That's new stuff. Unless there's some other misunderstanding what she's talking about.
I just read Travis's comment about what Candace said about Australia. Oh my God. That is such an ignorant statement. It's not funny.
I just pinned it up there on the. This is from my friend Doc. This is what Candace Owens said about Australia. Candace Owens actually asked, when do we deploy troops to Australia? When do we invade Australia and a free and oppressed? I guess there's more comments.
There's a part 2. Correct.
Oh, okay.
Fred, people who are suffering under a totalitarian regime. When do we spend trillions of dollars to spread democracy in Australia? Oh my God.
Good Lord. And what's so funny is that just about every major conflict that America's been involved in, who's right next to them?
Wintergreen. Same thing she got me last time.
Yeah, exactly, Doc. I mean, half the bloody places, the names of the states and the places and some of the streets and that are named after places by fucking Britain. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And she's talking about stuff like that. It's like, what?
That just comes from a place of total ignorance. I mean, Australia is such a beautiful country. It really, really is. And we're so on friendly terms with both England, America. We're not known as a troublemaker country.
Well, you're part of Commonwealth, Doc, can't you?
Of course. I've got a picture of the King in my house.
Yeah.
That's just wacky. That's a wacky statement.
Sure is.
Well, that's another thing that, just going to, again, I'm looking throughout the entire series, 1 through 9. She makes a lot of leaps of faith, and I'm talking about pretty far reaching without really much to grab onto. Yeah, and it's fine to speculate, but to me, you got to have a springboard or two, some kernel to make you go off into this direction. She's made some pretty far ones.
Yeah.
So
yeah. The True Crime says, she says he posted on Twitter that he and his team got access to NASA satellite image from the day they found the RAV or around that day, and that truthers would be very interested in it.
You know, I do remember that. And I remember there was a conversation. This has been a few months ago, Sapper. I don't know if you were part of that conversation or not. I remember that. And I can tell you right now that several of us looked. This was probably back in 2017, 2018. I don't remember. Somebody contacted. I'm not going to tell you who because I don't remember precisely about the satellite imagery. Now, there was some available, but it was like out of this world expensive. There's no way we could have done it. No way.
Well,
So we
my
didn't pursue it.
yeah, my feedback to Sean is, again, show me. You claim you have this stuff.
Right.
Show me. Why do you just run your mouth about it but don't ever produce?
Right.
You know.
It's manipulative to me.
Yeah.
It's highly manipulative, actually. Because that's another thing. Sean is, he says a lot of things, but he's also, he went after TikTok, and I couldn't believe what he said to him. I just can't.
He went after allegedly a show too.
He did. He went after New Scott. He did. So yeah, it's been some interesting exchanges. Again, very polarizing. So again, that brings us back around full circle in this battle between truthers and guilters, which has been going on since literally, I'm telling you, within a month of Making a Murderer airing. That's how long. Yep. And it just got to the point it was just not worth it to talk to these people because you couldn't have a civil debate. It always led off to they had to be right, you had to be wrong. Or you had to be right and they had to be wrong,
Yeah, and it usually ended up devolving into ad hominem attacks from their end.
That's right.
Very rude. Very rude.
Well, yeah, because if it come to the point of they couldn't win the argument, then you're going to get called a name or 10, and some of them really not very nice names. So
yeah,
letting it devolve off into that kind of thing is not going to solve anything. You're just going to get mad. Your blood pressure is going to go up. It's just not worth it. You're not going to get where you really want to get to, and that's my goal. The truth.
Yeah, and two of those chief people are on the show.
Yeah.
Puzzled and super pickle.
Yep. Absolutely. Yep. I mean, Puzzled got, it looks like he's probably at least mine and Doc's age. We're 29, at least 30, something like that. But he's a lawyer by trade of some type, according to him. And there was a mod position opened up on the Man Sub. This has been some years ago. And I say some years, probably 2020 time frame-ish. Anyway, there was a mod position. They were looking for a new mod. They asked me, and I said, nope, I can't do it. I'll kill someone. No, thank you.
True Crime Fangirl says he deleted a lot of old posts.
Oh, Puzzled?
I think
he did. He did. I'll tell you about that here in a minute. Anyway, this mod position opened up. Anyway, I said, ask around. I gave a few names. Well, and one was they were looking for anyone that was relatively level-headed. They felt like even if you're a truther or a guilter, could be decent to both sides. And that's kind of what you're looking for as a mod, is to try to let the conversation continue and not to just block someone or ban them because you don't like them. So this one truther that I had suggested, he agreed, and he said, okay, I'll do it. Well, Puzzle got so mad, he was furious. He told me and several others to F off a couple of times within the chat right there in the open, which is not supposed to be allowed. And
because you didn't recommend him? Is that what you're saying?
Well, no, because this other young man got the mod position and he didn't. He got so mad. Yeah, he got so mad. He told me and several others to F off, right in the open chat, which is not that's supposed to be bannable. They didn't allow that, and or at least a suspension. And then he deleted a bunch of his stuff off that sub and left. Of course, I knew he wouldn't stay gone. That's where the bulk of the traffic's at, right? He was gone for a little while. He was furious. Well, anyway, yeah, when he scorched earth on Reddit before is when he used to post a lot of stuff about KZ and all the wine she drank. She'd buying it by the box wine, by huge vats of wine in these big plastic. I'm not kidding. It was hundreds of different posts and comments. Anyway, Zellner called him out on Twitter. Called him out. And so he scorched earth on it. He deleted I don't know how many posts and comments. It was actually pretty comical. Well, that's that story. Anyway. So any more questions? Alice? Susan, anybody see any more questions we need to discuss before I pop this first clip up?
No, just general chat, Jack. Not really any questions at the moment. So we're all good for now.
Okay. Well, these clips, like I said, these involve the bullet, and they're, a minute or two, and probably no more than 2 minutes long for us to rebut and talk about. So this is kind of where we start, a lot of what we talked about last night without the clips from Convicting Murder. So let me get this first one loaded. You guys shouldn't have to do anything at all. I don't think it's going to mute you in this per se, but you should be able to hear it just fine. It's unlike what we had to do on Discord. So, all right, here's the clip 7. Yeah, this is the first one. Here we go.
Going forward, and I'm not going to talk a lot about Brendan Dassey's interview at this point, but as a result of that interview, he had indicated that Teresa was shot in the head in Stephen Avery's garage. We had already been in the process of getting a search warrant for that garage, an additional one, because we had already given up the scene.
So we got another search warrant and we searched the garage.
And this time we physically moved everything from one location to the next.
And it was a very slow process.
As a result of that search, there were 2 bullet fragments found. One in the back of the garage under an air compressor and one kind of in a crack toward the front of the garage.
There was a crack in the concrete and I observed this round gray object that resembled like the head of a roofing nail.
One was destroyed beyond being able to examine it forensically, but the one in the back of the garage wasn't. On top of that, that 22 fragment was tested for DNA and had Teresa Halbach's DNA on it.
All right. I'm going to tell you guys, I did a little creative editing of my own in that clip. I think that's the one, because I don't remember which one of the police officers it was. He was talking about, they were talking about adding this word in Making Murder, and that I don't care. It had changed nothing, so I clipped it out. It didn't change the nature of the clip, though, and what they found. And this bullet fragment that in other photos is not, well, that we have a photo of under that compressor, you can't see anything. You can't see a bullet fragment earlier on, and then suddenly on March 2nd.
Why is it sitting on top of the concrete dust?
That's right, and it's dust-free. It's on top of dust and dust-free. And I can't answer that.
I can, because it was placed there after the concrete dust had already settled.
I agree.
I agree too. We discussed this at length. Yeah.
But the other problem I know is, Jack, is that they just miraculously found this bullet 4 months after that whole property was supposed to have been searched multiple times.
Yeah, what they're basically saying is they were so incompetent in the previous searches that they had to go in and search again.
Yeah, they had to have a whopper to get back in there, is my belief, past Judge Willis or whoever signed that warrant for the March 1st entry, March 1st entry, 2006. And Steve Cobb had made a comment here. I don't remember any reports indicating a bullet in a crack. Have I missed something? Yeah, when they went back in there on March 1st or March 2nd, I guess they found the two bullets out of FK. Yep, out of FK, which he said was flattened. They couldn't do anything with it, and Adam FL. I don't know why she didn't test Adam FK.
No DNA was found on it.
Oh, did she test it?
Yeah. No DNA. It's in a report. No DNA was found on it, and they could not link it to Roland Johnson's rifle. It was in a fairly bad shape, but no DNA on it.
Well, there you go. And this leads off into. I don't think I've got it on. I don't think I recorded it here. I may have another clip of it somewhere, but we certainly talked about it. This leads back to that absurd animation and discussion that Fassbender had about Avery would have to have lain prone in that garage to have made this shot. That .22 slug would have had to entered and exited 2 times through bone, skull, which is pretty dense according to what docs tell me and what I read, and then continue on and skitter across the garage and land under that compressor, which I have a really difficult time believing.
But before you go on there, Jack 61, did you hear what Fassbender said? That it was Brendan who told them about the shooting in the head. He actually conveniently forgot that it was Wiegert that asked him directly. And now I'm starting to think whether that was actually done intentionally for the sole purpose of finding that bullet fragment, that bullet. Do you know what I'm trying to get at here?
I do.
Whether it was a deliberate introduction to get Brendan to say yes about the shooting scenario, which then in turn gave them the ability to do a search warrant and go back.
Probable cause.
Probable cause, and magically a bullet fragment shows up under the compressor. And in order for them to do that, they needed Brendan to legitimize what Wiegert said when he said, look, I'm going to say it direct. Who shot her in the head? He did.
I fully believe it was a setup, Doc.
To me, that looks exactly like a setup.
Absolutely. I feel that was a setup. I feel the May 12th scenario with O'Kelly, that was another setup. So they pulled one, why not pull another? That's what I believe. That's my opinion.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but Brendan Dassey never, ever mentions a shooting scenario prior to Wiegert asking him.
No. Not that I remember reading anywhere or him saying. No, nothing. And I just read in the DCI report 33 today, that's the Skorlinski, where Skorlinski got in his face. Because I was looking for you had already answered it, but I wanted to read it for myself about if Brendan or anyone mentioned handcuffs in that report or anywhere.
No, it was, I checked it. I checked it this morning, and Brendan was the first one that said, did you see her? Basically, Wiegert and Fassbender were asking whether Brendan Dassey had seen Teresa Horbach in the bed.
Right.
Down the corridor. And when you think about it, right, it made no sense for Brendan to say, yeah, she was just lying there. So I reckon all he did was he goes, oh, yeah, but she was handcuffed to the bed, right?
Yeah, but we don't know what was already out there. I mean, he'd been all over the news for months at that point, and what he'd been told, what had been said to him.
That's true. But what he ultimately did in the very last interview, he goes, no, she wasn't handcuffed. She was tied with rope.
That's
So
right. He changed his story again.
he actually changed his narrative. And the funny thing is, I checked it on Kiss the Girls. The woman is tied up in the bed with rope.
Yeah, and on top of that, he told Kayla she was tied to a chair.
Pinned up to a chair, correct.
Pinned up to a chair. So he was just, I mean, to me, all he was doing was guessing, trying to make them happy.
Correct.
Well, and one thing Cam has again been good at as far as leaving out information is they keep mentioning the rifles that were used, these actual piece of crap 22 rifles, and making no mention of the type of ammunition that was used, because of course they want everybody to believe that all ammunition is the same. A 30-06 is the same as a 22, is the same as a 308, blah, blah, blah. So they didn't mention anything about the actual ammunition used. Well, unfortunately, their dumbasses took a picture of the ammunition that was found in Stephen Avery's house and kept that photo. It's the brand is CCI. It's Mini-Mag 22 long rifle, right? We're talking about 36 grain hollow point ammunition. So
there's a hollow point.
Yeah. So the idea that something with that little power and a hollow point on top of that is going to go through a skull, completely through a skull, bounce off concrete, and be found almost, and in their own words at trial, almost fully intact.
Yeah. It's a magic bullet. It's what Doc
It's an
put up last night.
absolute magic bullet, yes.
Doc, this might be a question for you to be able to answer, and it's from Disco Pervert. Hi, Disco. She says, question, if Sherry washed the bullet, why is there so much stuff left on it, like wood, etc.?
Well, the actual washing procedure is not, it's essentially when you're washing, say, a bullet item, you don't use a high degree of agitation. She would have basically placed the bullet in a some type of elution buffer, shook it, probably increased the temperature in order to remove any surface DNA that was present on that bullet. Now, the DNA, of course, will be present as cells. If anything is lodged within the bullet, for example, bone fragments or wooden shards, it's not going to be dislodged from the bullet. So when an exemplar bullet was shot into the bovine scapulars, they also did a DNA extraction to prove that the procedure that Culhane used was not powerful enough to dislodge anything from the bullet. That means that there were no bone fragments attached to that bullet item FL, and the solution that she used would not have removed the bullet, the bone shards, if there are any bone shards within the bullet. And also, when you do an extraction, you spin down the tube. If there was any debris present on that bullet, it would have been noted.
There you go. And another thing about anything being embedded into that lead, and I'm not a gun expert. I'm just somebody I've shot quite a few rounds and that kind of thing. But when a bullet exits a barrel, it's pretty hot, and lead is pretty soft. And anything that it contacts is going to embed into it. Am I saying that right, Supper Cup?
Basically correct, yeah. Yeah, 22 tends to be softer than other rounds, such as 308, 300 blackout, things like that. But yeah, it's going to collect everything as it goes.
Right, being at that speed. But again, I think you made a very good point. These are hollow point bullets, and for anyone that doesn't understand what a hollow point is designed to do, it's designed to shred. Is that the correct terminology?
it's designed to expand upon impact. So
Massive damage.
yeah, so the idea that something that has now expanded to essentially twice its size is still going to maintain the same kinetic energy to be able to exit, it just doesn't make any sense at all.
And it to be a relatively almost intact bullet, that makes absolutely no sense to me.
Exactly.
Given Fassbender's little animation scenario, I was amazed that they shown that. I was amazed. Why would they include a clip like that? Okay. Looks like we have another comment from Travis. Before we get to this, let's click for a minute. They seized 22 shells and 223s. I don't know if the shells were tested by Wisconsin Crime Lab. She can have DNA on them. Numerous cases. Well, that's been the case. Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. Hey, there's no
actually even better than that, Travis, is they'll have fingerprints on them, right? Because somebody had to load them into the magazine. Or into the weapon itself, depending on how it's loaded.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I don't know, but I can't remember if they tested those shells, all the shell casings they picked up in the garage. It was 10 or 11, whatever it was. So
not that I'm aware of. I think there was some mention about the fact that they couldn't find prints, but I'll have to check my notes on them. But no, there were no conclusions about the gathered up shells.
Now, Nosy actually brought up something that we should probably address at some point, and that's that the idea that I think most of us have ran with for a while, and that was the idea that between the Avery trial and the Dassey trial, that they had Teresa dying in two different places in two different methods. I actually went back and looked at both Kratz's closing and Fallon's closing from the Dassey trial, and Kratz pretty much focuses just on the forensic piece. He never actually says where specifically she died in his view, but because he put so much focus onto the ballistics and the bullets, he left the impression that she was killed in the garage. Fallon, on the other hand, specifically says she was killed in the garage via gunshot wounds to the head. So I think we've all, at least in one way or another, have been kind of wrong about the two different deaths in two different places piece.
Yeah, I can't say that I've ever really looked at that end of it per se specifically. I know others have, so yeah, we probably should address that.
Yeah, I had said that on a number of occasions because I was under the impression that Kratz had said at Avery's trial that she died in the trailer, and then Fallon, of course, we knew had said she died in the garage. So that's where I had gotten the idea from. That's why I had to go back and relook at Kratz's closing.
Gotcha.
But I know that was kind of a common idea among many different people that was the case.
Kratz actually made that comment in his own book, that he couldn't go to both trials under the same conditions. He actually made that statement in his own book. I've got to find the quote. But my impression was you've got two different locations where the murder took place. And, remember, the only witness, in air quotes, to what happened and transpired is Brendan Dassey.
Right.
And so when Brendan was being questioned, was she alive? Yes. Ask him again. Was she alive? No. How could you tell? She wasn't breathing. So he kept on contradicting himself where Teresa actually had expired per se. So it's a movable. Teresa's death is movable depending on what part of Brendan's statements you want to believe, and that's why it's just so contradictory, right? There's just so much room for error. It's just not funny.
Yeah, and again, that's why it goes back to the state's narrative making absolutely no sense. You know, we have her being, you know, violently beaten, raped, stabbed, throat cut, and all this happening in the trailer, but she survives all that, and then in broad daylight, I assume, because they never mentioned this, but they would have to carry her from the trailer out the door in full view of everyone into the garage, where all of a sudden they decide, let's shoot her too. You know, it's the level of brutality that they suggest took place does not fit with any level of Stephen's personality. I mean, you're talking about somebody that's something that, like, a former spouse, a girlfriend, boyfriend, you know, somebody related that is angry at that person. That's where that level of violence comes from. What would cause Stephen to be so upset with Teresa that he would take that level of violence? No sense at all.
No. It's a lot of the experts, FBI experts, looking at pattern matching levels of crime, have all agreed that this is a crime of passion. Someone has totally flipped and lost their marbles and commit. And somebody made the comment in chat: it is a massive overkill. Massive.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, and that's if you believe what the state says happened. Now, at this point, I couldn't even tell you what happened to Teresa, because I'm almost going to be of the impression that Teresa isn't even what was found at the yard.
Well, based on what information we really do have, I don't think we could really know based on what we have. If there's information that's not been released, which clearly, in my opinion, there is, maybe we could come up with a different conclusion. But you know, it's like I mean, talk about the different phone calls that seem to be some kind of state secret that I can't get, a recording of Rendon that seems to be another state secret that I can't get. The number of photographs that also seem to be a national security threat, I can't get.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty ridiculous. I mean, they definitely took pictures of some type on the ground on November 7th at Cuss Road. Can't get the photos. Why not? If there's nothing to hide, why not?
We've got a question in chat from Anthony House. Now, I'm staying out of this conversation because I ain't got a Scooby about them. But do silencers mark around on exiting the barrel? I will leave that to the people that know.
Do silencers mark around?
Oh, he's saying from a ballistic standpoint, from the lands and grooves, if you use a silencer, and they do, you can answer that, Sapper. I know that's correct. Don't they kind of remove or distort the lands and grooves on a bullet?
Well, the bullet has already gone down the barrel.
Yeah, no, they're just designed to displace the
gas.
Sound?
The gas in the air, which causes the bang when a bullet leaves the barrel. Right. It's designed to displace that. So that's and they're not even there's really no such thing as a silencer. Most they do is muffle the sound. They don't. You still hear it. It's just it's not that audible. Yeah.
It's muted.
Yeah.
Don't worry. I've seen these guys do slow motion videos of the bullets coming out of silencers, and it sounds just like a pop, and the gas is displaced.
Yeah.
Some of the high powered rifles have got a special chamber where the gas moves away from where the bullet comes out and is displaced. So you only hear a pop, but the bullet still travels down the barrel, and the barrel has to be bored out, which means that you're going to have landing and groove marks on that bullet. Plus, that's exactly what the bullet examiner found on item FL. That's how come he was able to link it to Rolly Johnson's rifle.
That's a thing that, and I can't remember where I read this or saw it, and I'm not saying it was a true article at all. I'm remembering that using a silencer did a couple of things. And one, it affects how far a bullet can travel and direction, I guess. The aim is not as accurate, and that it can distort the lands and grooves on a bullet because I guess silencers are basically just straight metal. It doesn't have any bore in it. It's not bored at all.
Correct. Yeah. It's just its only purpose is to displace the gas in the air.
Gotcha.
From the expulsion of the bullet. And that's why you can make them out of you can make field expedient suppressors that are made out of like a soda bottle with stuff like that. It does tend to limit its range because some of the range you get from the gas and air that goes along with the bullet being fired. And because a suppressor does add additional weight to the front of the weapon, you do have to compensate for that weight. So, if you didn't compensate, you can end up shooting low, left, right, whatever the case may be.
Right.
No, it won't have any actual effect on the bullet itself other than just the displacement of the gases in the air.
Gotcha. Good to know. I'll forget about that other then. Okay, Alice. Any more questions that you can see about that?
No.
I think Anthony actually brought up another point that Fallon made a huge mistake in his closing. Because in Fallon's closing, he stated that the attack took place in the trailer. Then Teresa was moved to the garage where she was shot and killed, and then put on a creeper and taken to the fire pit for burning. So according to Fallon's story, the RAV never came into play. So where did Teresa's blood in the RAV come from?
That's interesting. That is a major gaffe.
Yep.
I mean, it's related to Brendan's story, one of his stories.
Look, common sense tells you, right? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Not even just common sense. The friggin' science tells you that nothing happened in that trailer. Nothing.
Or garage.
Or garage. Or even the friggin' burn pit. Because the simple reason is, she was shot. Man, all that would have heard the gunshots. Anybody that was on the property at the salvage yard would have heard the gunshots. If the body was burnt in that bloody burn pit, the foul smell that would have been travelling in every fucking direction, that area, you would have smelt it, and nothing. There was no reports, no suspicious calls, no nothing to say that there was a foul smell or gunshots or screams or anything like that coming for the Avery salvage yard. So it's all shite. It is all utter shite.
Well, Alice, one important point, you brought up a very important point, and Jack 61, we discussed this. It was incredible that Chuck Avery said in a very early report to one of the detectives, he goes, if someone had fired a rifle or a weapon, I would have heard it. And what is interesting, and this is before the cranial bone fragments were found. So amazing that Chuck Avery put two and two together and mentioned a weapon going off or being discharged on the property so early on in the piece. And no one knew that. Who had mentioned guns? Nobody, except Chuck.
Yeah. Well, I think it. I think it's true, especially 10 gunshots. If that garage was closed, it would have magnified that sound. Somebody would have heard something.
Yeah,
Somebody,
absolutely.
even a 22. They're not super loud, but they're loud enough. I mean, I've shot 22 many times.
Yeah, I mean, Scylla in chat is Scylla442 is saying it was hunting season. Yeah, it might have been hunting season, but to me, if she was shot on that property, anybody in that salvage yard, whether they were looking at the motors, whether they were at the shop, whether they were at the hussies, it would have reverberated through there. It would have been closer to any other woods or anything like that. That would have, well, to me, I mean, I don't know, because we don't have guns here in the UK. So, people go hunting for deer and things like that, but it's away in rural bits and everything like that. We don't have guns in our cities or rural towns or anything like that. So I can't really speak about how they are or what the sounds of, but I'm only trying to use common sense here, right? If you're shooting a gun somewhere as close a vicinity as a salvage yard where anybody could be on that salvage yard and hussies round about, they're not going to hear it, especially 10 shots, and they're not going to hear it.
I mean, Scylla's got a point, but there's a couple of issues. I don't know that it was actually gun season. They have different seasons here. Right, Sapper, you may be able to talk about more about this than I can, but there's bow season, which is, it's bows only. You can't use a gun. And then you have a set amount of time, and that goes for a number of days, maybe a week or two, whatever. And then you have gun season, and that runs for a specific amount of time.
I think Bobby said it was the opening of bow season, wasn't it?
And that's what I was thinking. But I think so, but it's been too long since I read, and I can't remember. But it seems to me like it was bow season. Now, again,
he was going bow hunting. That was his story.
Yes, and it's not to say that somebody couldn't have fired a gun, testing their gun out, and that's fine. But I don't think it would have been near that Avery. I mean, they had pretty large property. You got to consider they had a pretty big property, and I don't, in relationship from Chuck's trailer or house to Avery's trailer garage area. I don't know how far that is, but I don't think it's that far.
Wasn't one of the Redont employees, was he the one that said he heard 2 gunshots?
Doc, do you remember that? I don't.
Somebody heard 2 gunshots.
Somebody did mention that they heard 2 gunshots, but in terms of the firing of the weapons, they normally fire their weapons at the pit area. That's where they sight their guns. So if someone had fired 10 shots in the direction of Stephen Avery's trailer, Chuck would have been in a perfect position to have heard them. And nobody from the Dassey residence mentions hearing gunshot.
No, and they were right there. Brendan was there. Blaine was there till about 6. He left, and he was gone for a couple of hours or so. But depending on when this, do you remember if I don't think they gave any kind of time frame though as to when Teresa was shot, did they?
They have no clue what happened to Teresa.
I'm just talking about, and there's speculatory, rambling, whatever I call it. I don't remember Fallon. I don't remember anybody saying exactly when that happened. So, I think the junkyard was open until 5 o'clock. I think that's right. Anybody could have been on that. Anybody could have been on that property.
Well, that's right. And Stephen had no control over who could have come over to his place.
No,
right?
None. No control at all.
There were people on that property. Quite a few people.
Yes, there were.
Yeah, there was.
Oh, I'm thinking
during the attack in the trailer, there was no less than 9 people, at least on the property.
On the 31st.
Yep.
Okay. That's a lot.
It is.
And then you have Redont's right next door, employees over there.
I'm sure. Yeah. I'm like, they run a couple of shifts over there. I mean, I don't remember per se how many were there on the evening of the 31st, but,
And Chuck, sorry, Alice, just to answer T1, Chuck's statement was on the 6th of November, where he mentioned about the guns on the 6th. And remember, this is before any cremains have been found.
Right. Okay. Alice, have any more questions?
Yeah, Rodica in chat says, wasn't Errol at a doctor's appointment on the 1st? So how would he have heard the gunshots?
Supposed to have an eye exam or something, wasn't it? An eye appointment?
Eye appointment, yes.
Yeah, I saw something about that. I don't remember if it was on Reddit or where somebody was asking a question about wasn't he supposed to have an eye appointment, that how could he be on the property running around with Fabian.
Well, that's
right.
Later.
That's
it's a long day. He could have gone in the morning. And
yeah. Earl seems to have very little memory of the 31st. He gives very generalistic answers. No commitment to time.
Right.
He's just like, well, we were there, we did this, we did that, with nothing else. Fabian, on the other hand, he's very specific. He says I think the time he gave was either 3:30 or 3:45 that he was running around with Earl in the golf cart. They were going to go rabbit hunting. They had stopped and picked up 2 trees, which I think is funny because what was found leaning up against the RAV? A tree, right? And then he even said which direction they went to go hunt these rabbits. Now, whether that's the actual direction they went, who knows? But it was towards the pond.
The entryway doorbell.
They said they drove right past where the RAB was.
Yep. Because Fabian says that Earl told him if the RAV would have been there, he would have seen it.
Yeah,
that's right.
Correct.
Especially covered like that with all that stuff on it.
Yes.
Would call attention to it. Well, of course it would.
So, if you can, I don't know if I saved it, but you can read Fabian's interview, and it's much more specific than Earl's.
Yeah.
Which again, it
was a different day to begin with, Sapper?
Well, Fabian said it was the 31st.
Oh, okay.
Which again makes me suspicious of this interview that Earl gave on the 9th of November, which is a good portion of it's gone. At least, 3/4 of tape 2 and all of tape 3, however long it went on tape 3. And why would they include a tape 3 if there's nothing on it? That tells me they recorded something.
Right. Yeah.
It's fully redacted. They give you a blank CD. Yeah.
That's right. Well, go ahead, Doc.
I found the CASO report. Apparently, Earl went down to pick up a second pair of glasses on the 31st between 5 o'clock and 6 o'clock.
Oh, wow. So he immediately left from this run-in with Stephen and ran to the eye doctor.
Yep. And they got an interview with Julie Tisler, who works at Dr. Daniel's Eye Care. So he went down there and picked up a second. This whole thing about Fabian is complete garbage. About this seeing the smoking burn barrel.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't believe that.
But it is true. It is true. Earl reckons that it was November the 4th, where both him and Fabian were down at the pit, exactly where the RAV4 was meant to be, and they never saw it. And that complements the flyover, because the guys in the aeroplane never spotted a RAV4 either. And it complements exactly what Earl just said in that report as well.
Yeah, and to answer your question, Susan, when I got I got a copy of that November 9th recording interview with Earl from CASO first. I wasn't satisfied with it because I noticed immediately when I was listening to it, it cut off. I'm like, what the hell? And that was the end of it. That was it. So I thought, okay. So I contacted the DOJ and I requested the same thing. Of course, it took a little more time, but I got 3 separate recordings from the DOJ. I don't remember if it was that. I don't remember who sent it to me, but it was 3 separate audio files, and they were the exact same thing, except it was in 3 separate files. Tape 2 cuts off midway or so on side A. There was nothing on side B, and tape 3 is completely redacted as well. So I asked 3 different. I've asked CASO for a clean copy. And they said that's all I got. I asked the DOJ for a clean copy, and they said, well, part of it had to be redacted because, and they go off into their bullshit, blah 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 blah. That makes absolutely no sense at all. This is an interview. So what did he divulge that's some kind of secret? It's crap.
Is this with Earl?
Yes.
Well, you know what? Mark Wiggett interviewed him on the 5th, right? And that's when he said that he was down there at the pit on the 4th. So think about it. That's his memory would have been pretty sharp because it occurred 1 day prior to when he got interviewed with Mark Wiggett. He goes, I was down there. I never saw a RAV.
Right.
And he was down 1 day prior to being interviewed.
And so then 4 days later, he gets interviewed by I don't remember which agents it were, which DCI agents, but where it cuts off on Earl on tape 2, side A, the agent is talking. It wasn't Earl talking, it was the agent talking, boom, gone. The recording ends. So I don't know what was said to him or what he said back, but I sure would. And it may be nothing, but I still want to hear it. What happened? What happened during this recording that we can't hear it for all of a sudden? They heard it. I'm sure the state heard it. I'm not miming by the state. I mean Fallon, Gone, and Kratz. So
yeah, and the reason I find all of that very interesting is they're running around in the golf cart, a golf cart which a cadaver dog later hits on. And who is the person who went and hid in a pile of laundry and had his wife lie about where he was when law enforcement came around to collect DNA?
Yep, you kind of stole my thunder, but it's good that you did because I was going to bring that up. And why would he do that? What's the point?
Suspicious, yeah.
It is. Why would he go hide in a pile of laundry? What had he done? What was he afraid of?
Why didn't he want to give his DNA up? Yep.
That's right. Mm-hmm. It's questionable. And now here we have all this axe grinding here in CAM, episodes 1 through at least 4 or 5 different scenarios and events that allegedly happened. That's like him talking about Steven dragging bear down the road. Well, if you did that, why didn't you call the fucking cops? Pardon my language. Why did you call the cops? Report it. If it happened, that's absolute crap.
Yep.
But just to say,
Earl hiding. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Who's you? Ronica. Mm-hmm. Oh, she didn't know that. Yeah.
Yes, that was Earl.
Yeah, that was Earl that was hiding in the pile of coals when the cops come to take his DNA.
And Candy told him she wasn't home, right? He wasn't.
That's
home.
Right. He wasn't home. That's right.
Yeah,
but he was.
You'll notice that CAM, just like a lot of other things, have completely stayed away from Earl Avery's past, and so I have made it quite clear in a number of tweets with tagging both Sean, Candace, and pretty much anybody else that wanted to listen, asking Sean, why did you give so much airtime and credibility to a child molester?
Well, not only him, but Kratz had huge problems.
Yep.
Huge problems.
And Rich Donovan. I've mentioned Rich Donovan a number of times too.
God.
Alleged
that guy.
Pat Kratz.
And this Rich Donovan character, I mean, he, oh my God, the stuff he did on Twitter, anybody that wasn't on, I mean, I may have some of the tweets saved somewhere, but I'm
sure Jinxie does.
Sure, I'm sure Jinx has got several of them saved. Probably in the drive somewhere in her drive.
What did he do?
Well, he attacked he not only attacked Jinx, there was another girl.
There was 3 of them.
Yeah, there was 3 of them actually.
Is this
Nosy was
recent,
around.
or-
No, this was back in 2018, 2019.
Uh-huh.
He had the cops called on him a couple times
Yeah.
because of the shit he pulled. Threats.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
physical threats. He was.
Wow.
So, yeah.
What in the world? Why are they like that?
I don't know, but more. It's. I guess more to the point that Safford's making is why would they have these people on as some kind of character witness?
Well, that's what we discussed before. Remember, you've got shady characters casting aspersion on other shady characters. It's not going to end well for anybody.
No. And
No.
Lynn Kaczynski, and thank God they didn't.
Yeah, correct.
I'm surprised they didn't have O'Kelly in there.
Yeah, he probably said no, thank you. I'm not going there. We don't have a list. We don't have a list of those that declined the interview, but
Well, we haven't seen Wiegert either.
no.
No.
Nope.
So Gloria asked who made threats. That's Rich Donovan, known as Case Enthusiast in the series. He's the dorky looking guy with the glasses.
Yeah.
And angry. He's so angry when he speaks on there.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, that was a pretty good little break there. All right, let's get back to the bullet, and we're going to be, this next clip. Now, these are, over the course of that, 20 or so minutes that they talked about the bullet, IMFL, I should call it. And there were a lot of interjections by various people. And I did clip some of them, and then we're going to get into Culhane here shortly. And that ought to be fun. Anyway, this is the next clip. So let's take a look at it.
The bullets were shot by that garage from that rifle. So they put that one bullet and they matched it up to the gun. So what? It was shot from that gun.
I fired that gun at chipmunks, and I fired that gun at targets all over the lot. I fired it all over the yard. I fired it off the deck.
I mean, you think that these casings were left behind by Mr. Johnson?
Well, I mean, you heard him. If you take a metal detector out there now, you'd find, if you get through the snow, you'd find them all over the place.
But would any of them have Teresa Halbach's DNA on them?
Well, of course, that's the question that a jury is going to have to answer. And did any of them have her DNA on it is also a question they're going to have to answer because it was a contaminated test.
I have a problem with the bullet. Sherry Culhane, she's the one that freed Stephen Avery.
Sherry Culhane was actually part of this case going way back to 1985 when she tested hair in Stephen's wrongful conviction. She also was part of the exoneration when she tested pubic hair that turned out to be Gregory Allen's. In 2007, when she testified, she explained that she had gotten some of her DNA into a control sample.
Yeah, she sure did. And this is the little trickery part. We talked about this at length last night. We're going to get more into it, but I got some clips of Sherry, but this is the beginning part. And Doc talked quite a bit. I talked some last night about this process and understanding this process. And this little trick, I feel, was completely pulled over Willis's. I don't think Willis understood the importance of the negative control. I've argued with various guilters and maybe even other people, not so much arguing, more explaining, that a negative control is designed to capture any contamination. Once you have a contamination event, you stop. It's done. Because if the negative control is contaminated, that means you have some kind of contamination level within your lab, whatever that may be. It does matter what was on the bullet, but you can't say for sure that it wasn't contaminated too because your environment's not clean. That's the way I understand it. right? Doc?
Yeah, 100%. And I'm glad that you said it, Jack 61, because you know how I feel about it. But it's not only members that were in CAM that didn't understand it. It's actually quite a lot of guilters that refuse to understand or even want to acknowledge the problem of having a contaminated control. And the other thing is, there is not just a negative control, there's also a positive control, which you do with every set of experiments. And you said it beautifully, Jack 61. If you have a contamination event, it means that your laboratory bench is not clean. Something has happened. You have an incident, which means that, as you know, you contaminated control. You cannot make any assessment or comment about any test sample. You basically have to throw out all your tubes, make sure everything is clean, and you restart from the beginning. And the fact that they have a contamination log should ring alarm bells, right? So in their laboratory, they have many, many cases whereby the DNA of the analyst doing the work has ended up in the tubes. Yeah, so it's ended up being a huge disaster.
Right. And this is kind of what I read through last night. This is just what I created. I didn't go the doc and anybody else and just create this on my own. This was just from my own understanding of the process and why it's important.
We didn't even discuss this. You came up
with
it yourself, which is very impressive.
You know, and just going through it one more time quickly, so there's a understanding. She first was teaching new lab techs using a live sample, and that way back when I watched Making a Murderer, I had no idea. I didn't even consider having a live sample. But why would you do that? You would teach using an inert sample, right?
If you were doing in a teaching situation where I have done it many, many times, I've taught even doctors from hospitals that they want to come over and they want to learn molecular biology techniques. That's cool, but you never use a sample that you're experimenting on. You always use a sample where if you stuff it up, there's no problems, no issues at all. It's for teaching purposes. And what is incredible here is that this is a crime laboratory handling forensic evidence potentially in a murder trial. And Strang and Buting had requested, remember, they wanted to go in the laboratory to check on the procedures to make sure that there is fair forensic testing.
That's right.
Buting and Strang were told at no end, nope, you cannot come into the lab because of fear of contamination. And what the hell happened?
John had about 15 heart attacks over it.
Yep, karma bit Cherie Cohane.
It did. So that comes to our next part. After she washed it, she didn't divide the DNA after what? Well, I don't think I didn't put in, quantitating it, and I should have. I forgot it. She should have measured how much she had and then divided it.
Correct. When you do a DNA prep, and I checked her manual, you essentially dilute the sample, the final sample, in a specific volume. So just say 50 microliters. If you suspect that the amount of DNA you're going to get back is actually quite low, hey, no problems. Instead of adding 50 microliters, add 20 microliters. So your sample is more concentrated. You then quantitate, but you never utilize your entire sample in one experiment. That's very bad experimental technique.
And she's teaching new students how to do this.
Correct. Correct. Yes.
Then on top of that, while she's teaching, she's either unmasked or ungloved, one way or the other. She contaminated that negative control.
Yes, she reckons that she spat, or someone had speculated that she had spat into the tube.
Right.
I highly doubt it. it's very likely that form of contamination means that either one of the solutions or one of the pipette tips she touched with her naked hand and got some of her skin cells on one of the solutions or one of the tips and introduced her own DNA into the tube.
Which means she was ungloved.
That's very, very likely, yes. I didn't want to say that.
Well, that's okay. I don't mind saying it. So then it becomes now you have a contamination event. And then under their standard procedure and protocols, the testing of item FL should have ended right there. Instead, the crime lab does have a deviation form. Culhane submitted the deviation, however, her direct supervisor did not sign it. We discussed that quite a bit last night, and you had the form.
Yes.
But the deviations are, if you have some kind of incident, deviations are allowed for exclusionary purposes only. But she wanted to change that again. I mean, to me, this is another mistake that goes completely against their own SOP. She wanted to include Teresa's sample and just negate her contamination.
Correct. Bypass the contamination control. But as T1 pointed out, it was really more than just one mistake. It was a whole litany of mistakes, and there was no safety net in which she did. Basically, she's saying, trust me.
Yeah, exactly. And that comes down to basically what Buting asked. I wasn't in that clip, but it will be. How do we know item FL was not also contaminated?
Correct.
I think you explained that very well, and the example you put up about if you had a call from your doctor about having potential diagnosis for cancer, and then you come to find out, oh wait, there was a mistake at the lab.
Yep.
Anybody else have any comments?
It's not necessarily on this, Jack, but Kay, hi Kay, actually found the 2005 season dates for the hunting, and it's archery, which is probably the bow hunting, is September 17th through November 17th and November 28th and January 3rd. And that's non-CW units and non-metro units, whatever that means. A muzzle loader is November 28th through to December 7th. And that's the non-CDW units. And then there was another bit that she added. And then the disabled is October 1st through October 9th. Firearms is November 19th to the 27th. And then additional Zone T is October 27th through October 30th and December 8th and December 11th. So with that means that the bow hunting was in season from
but not firearms.
September 17th through to November 17 was the bow hunting. So yeah, Bobby and that would have been in season for the bow hunting. So
there you go. Thank you for looking that up, Kay. That's awesome. It is. Yeah. So, I know it's, European and other countries, it's a little harder to understand, and not living in maybe in a rural setting anyway. And hearing a gunshot is not really out of the realm. People, working on a farm or just doing various things, sighting in their guns and so forth. Sometimes people just set up targets to shoot, go out and have a couple of beers and set up targets to fire off their guns, and that's fine. So it's not out of the realm of hearing a gunshot out in the country. It's just not. But
yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, Jack. I mean, our farmers and things like that, I think they're allowed to have shotguns and things like that on their property because
right, with
farmers
buckshot.
are allowed to shoot any animals or anything like that chase after the sheep or
Sure.
anything like that. You know, your dog can be shot for doing
Right.
that, you know. So like farmers and things like that are allowed to have their guns. We do have guns here in the UK, but it's not like your average Joe in every household, whether it's in the city or whether it's a rural area like mine that's 10 miles
Sure.
away to the city, you know,
Right.
we do not have guns. So if I was to hear a gunshot in my town or my village, I'd be like, what the fuck was that? You know what I mean? And if the police came round, it would be like, I heard a gunshot at 10 o'clock at night and it sounded like it came from that area. But because I'm in the valley of the hills, if it's been shot down in one area, it'll reverberate and, you know, and it'll come up to me. So it could have been shot anywhere in Pennycook. But because it's an unusual sound for us, we'd all be like, what the bloody hell? You know?
Right.
But yous have got them everywhere. I mean, that's what part of your constitution, isn't it? That
Yeah, oh, yeah.
bear arms. You know, and I know a lot of yous are, you know, really up for your guns and things like that. I mean, we had a mass shooting, a school shooting here at Dunblane, and we've never had a school shooting since. You know, because we done like an amnesty thing that you know you could hand in your gun anonymously. So I think that was more aimed like for gangs and, you know, things like that, because these are the only people that would have guns apart from the police. But even our police officers don't walk about with guns, Jack. You know, our normal bobbies on the beat, they do not walk about with guns hanging off their waistband. You know, they have like spray, they have a baton, they have a taser. But the tasers have really came in not that long ago. It was only ever a baton and like a long extendable pole thing that they had onto their belts. No guns, you know. So I would freak out if I came to America and walked past your police officers on the street and they had guns attached to their belts, you know, because it's unusual. It's not something that I see on a regular basis. So I'd be like, oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, there's you know, really, there's many thousands and thousands of responsible gun owners, and they would never, you know, irresponsibly fire a gun. They would never irresponsibly store their gun in a place where somebody could easily get to it. I'm not saying they couldn't get to it. I'm just saying they couldn't easily get to it. They're responsible, and you know, that's where you run into the issue of the irresponsible gun owner, or people that have they place no value on human life. And I can tell you, I was raised around guns, and I was taught, you know, I was taught from a very early age the responsibility you bear when you pick that gun up. Don't ever point it at someone unless you intend to use it. Ever. Never. And don't ever assume a gun is unloaded. Ever. I was taught, it was drilled into me. And it's not like we had a lot of guns in our house. We did. We had a few. But I was taught that. I was taught that by my dad and my grandfather. You know, it's just something that happened. And I think Sapper can probably comment to that too. And he was probably raised, or has, you know, certainly from military experience and whatever, and being a police officer, that value, you know, and having that responsibility. So it's just something that you're raised with from birth, you know, and the point of that part of our Bill of Rights is, so, you know, if the government goes too far one way or the other, that the citizens have a right to defend themselves, right? The right to bear arms, and which, you know, it's a whole different concept, and I get it, I do. So, anyway.
Yeah, I mean, the only difference there is, Jack, is that if somebody breaks into my house or anything like that, they're not getting shot with a gun or anything like that. They're getting hit with a baseball bat across their head. You know what I mean?
Sure,
It's just,
sure.
you know, I mean, you can defend your property, but then if something happens to that, I'm the one that can be lifted because I've hit them with a baseball bat, even though they've broke into my house.
Right.
You know,
Oh, yeah.
it's just, it's weird to backwards that way, you know.
Not that we're promoting violence on the foul play team, right?
No, not at all.
No, not at all. Not at all. I'm just saying, use them for your guns. We use bats. You know what I mean? It's to defend our property. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's just something that's you know, it's kind of ingrained into us, and but that respect for, and it's not that. Hey, look, it's not that things didn't happen in the past either that were bad with guns, with a bad actor. It did. It wasn't as, you know, because of the limitations of you know, being able to get stories out to the world or whatever, at least or in the area, region. It was underreported, but you know, there were things that happened in the past that weren't good with a bad actor killing a lot of people. But it's just something that, you know, we've been raised around. I mean, to me, it would be weird for it not to be there. I'm not saying that there shouldn't be. I mean, I think that, you know, gun ownership is a responsibility more so than owning a car. There's just all kinds of things tied to it. Anyway, Travis had put up a comment earlier. I actually just took it down about, you know, somebody's, you know, hunting for rabbits. Nobody's going to call that in, and he's right. You know, they're just not. So that's a good point, Travis. Anyway, any more comments about this aspect? So we just kind of ended that clip there with this contamination event. So if everybody's good, I'm going to go ahead and head into this third clip and see where we get to with this one. And I think we're going to be at trial with, I think it's going to be Buting questioning Culhane. So here we go.
Attorney pressed the point that technically the test was contaminated and by crime lab protocol should have been reported as inconclusive. Culhane requested a deviation from the rules from her supervisors, allowing the test to stand.
Wait a minute. I think I played the wrong clip. I apologize for that. We'll come back to it. Let me remove that. Let me play this other one. I think it's clip 9. I think that's the one I played. Wait a minute. Clip 8. Clip 9. I played 2 clips, right?
Yeah.
So I did play that one. I was thinking I started with clip 7, but I didn't. I started with clip 8. Okay. Here we go. Put it back. I apologize.
Attorney pressed the point that technically the test was contaminated and by crime lab protocol should have been reported as inconclusive. Culhane requested a deviation from the rules from her supervisors, allowing the test to stand.
Each case that we work and every situation is different, and sometimes there are circumstances that warrant deviating from the stated protocol.
I'm going to pause it right here. And I can't remember the number. Maybe you can remember, Doc, but didn't it come up? I don't think it's in this clip, but I think that Buting asked Culhane how many tests she'd done, and it was like 60,000+ in her career.
Yeah, very large number of tests.
And so she's talking about there's cases that, you know, would require a deviation. Well, which one is that, Sherry? And I think that's the reason he made that point. Because she's stating this in open court, that there's each situation is different. Well, no, not really.
That was the only time she requested a deviation, because
Yes.
normally with the contamination form, when you make a mistake or you discover a mistake, you log it and you write down in the logbook what you have done to remedy your error. So normally that would mean cleaning up your bench, throwing out the solutions, and re-extracting.
Yep.
But you must log that an error had occurred. And Culhane had the highest contamination rate in the lab.
Yeah, senior lab tech, been there the longest, and she
Correct.
makes the most mistakes. Well, clearly, I mean, just from my layman's little list, she made several. I don't think I counted them, but just thinking off the top of my head, she made 5 mistakes, I think, in my opinion. That's just an opinion. And I think she goes into that a little bit more, maybe in this clip or maybe the next one. I can't remember, but I think she does talk about that.
Sorry, Jax, this one. Did you notice that she stuttered?
Yes, I did.
And thought that right there probably represented about a week of angst because she knew she was going to get grilled on that very point.
Of course. And again, she's probably thinking about that attitude, and she got in a whatever communication form she did with Gahn and Fallon and Crass over this massive error. It's a huge error, a number of errors. It wasn't just one.
Correct.
And this is, to me, this is the little trick. Again, when I watched Making Murder, I didn't understand it. I knew that finding out that her supervisor didn't sign that form was a big deal, but then going and doing the research on the actual protocol surrounding doing a test. And again, I don't have a science background. I worked in the printing industry for many years, and we had protocols too. Not this, but there were certainly protocols, and we had to follow them, especially for certain customers, and it had to be reported.
As I mentioned yesterday, the form says that a committee was supposed to approve that deviation.
That's right. Maybe here in a minute I can grab that form and pop it back on screen so everybody that wasn't around last night can see that form. That is interesting. I'd never noticed that. Never. And there's lines for a lot of people to sign that. Let's listen to this clip, and I'll look for that. I think I've got that pretty handy. Anyway, let's listen to the rest of this clip.
The stated protocol. My DNA was not in the evidence sample. It was only in the control, and it was a source that I could track. It was me.
I would not be saying this if there were a profile that we couldn't determine whose it was, some unknown profile.
There was no way possible that the lab technician could contaminate the negative control with her own DNA and that it would show up as Teresa Hallback's DNA on a completely separate test.
If it was just in the control, couldn't she have kind of started that control over, or am I missing something?
Yes, you are.
I don't like her testing of the bullet, using it all up, and then not being able to retest anything. I have a hard time believing that there was such a minuscule amount of DNA on that bullet.
Sherry's DNA is already there. You can't go back anymore.
This was a little bit different because all of her other cases, she could go back and retest it again.
Probably 99% are resolved by re-extracting.
Oh boy.
That Dave, right?
I included that. I included Dave for you.
You're trying to bait me here, aren't you? Aren't you, Jack 60?
No, I would never do that.
There'd be potentially a lot of people who would listen to that comment by Dave. It is irrespective of whose DNA is actually present in the negative control. It's irrelevant, right? The mere fact that you've got any DNA in a negative control is of concern. The mere fact that it happened to be Cherie Culhane makes no difference. And I'll explain to you. I checked their contamination logbooks. To my horror, they discovered a contamination of one of the PCR tubes of a male DNA. They do not know the origin of where that sample came from. It's not involved in any one of their cases. It's an unknown male whose DNA got extracted and amplified in a PCR tube. So what's the difference? There's no difference. Foreign DNA is foreign DNA, no matter if it came from an unknown person or the analyst themselves. The fact that it came from the analysts themselves meant that she herself contaminated her workbench. You have to be very concerned about that.
Exactly. And again, I think this is the whole thing of the point gets lost. That the negative control is there to catch contamination. It just gets ignored. It's like, well, that was a separate tube and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that's right. It is. And it's designed to be that. There's not supposed to be anything there. And I get that the bullet is its own freestanding thing. But that's not the point of having the negative control.
You have absolutely no confidence in the test result. No confidence whatsoever. And that's why those controls are done in the very first place. And Susan is 100% correct. This is a serious deviation from what normally happens in the laboratory. You don't just go to your buddy in another laboratory and say, hey, look, can you please sign this, and hope to God that no one catches it. Something like this, and Susan is correct, you need a committee. You need to sit down, hash it out. Do we approve this? Yes or no? Because it is the reputation of the laboratory that's at stake.
Yeah, it clearly says there. Action by manual review committee. Check 1. Approved, denied.
Now, most people looking at this form would have rejected it. You can't allow this to go through because you open yourself up legally to an incredible shit show. Because if you bypass a control and you say, look, we want to include this result, and think of this scenario, and I'd love for Travis to comment. If this result was to send someone to prison, and then years down the track, you discover that the true perpetrator of the crime is not the person you sent to prison based on your result, what's going to happen to the lab? What's going to happen to the lab technician who approved it?
You're right.
And that's my basis of fear, that if you allow this to go through, potentially you could be sending the right or the wrong person to prison for life for a brutal murder that they may or may not have committed. Do you understand my concern?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And if you're Marie Beth Veriali, are you going to put your head on the chopping block and say, yes, Cherie, no problems?
Hell no. I think she understood the ramifications and the problems of the negative control because she's well aware of why it's there.
Correct.
Mr. President in chat, Jack says, was this whole deviation swept under the rug with the assumption that it would never get caught by the defense?
True. Correct.
Well, and yeah. Go ahead, Doc. Sorry.
But she never reported it in her own report that went up to the Attorney General. She never stated. She only said, the manipulation controlled had the DNA of the analyst. That's it. As in, there was no footnote to say, in order for me to submit this, I needed to put in a deviation request form.
Yeah, and I don't want to state this incorrectly, but am I remembering correctly, Buting saying at some point, I don't know if it was during trial or pre-trial or when, that he actually found the deviation. It wasn't like she wrote a report and handed it in.
Yes, he did his homework.
And found the deviation form in the pile of discovery material.
I believe so, yes, correct.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Travis in chat says, Doc, that's right, Doc. But even if that didn't happen, overriding a control, you can run into accreditation problems.
Accreditation, yep, absolutely.
Yep, 100% correct.
And then T1 has a question. Has a deviation ever been allowed from that lab to include?
Not as far as I'm aware. I
Well,
think
I
that's
don't know
the only one that I know of.
I don't know about the Madison lab, or if it was the Madison lab, and I don't want to state the case wrong, but I'm almost positive it was the Ben Bennett case. You guys remember the Ben Bennett case from? Well, I think it was back in the
Yes.
80s.
Oh, yes.
And I think it was TikTok that actually found this. They actually altered their protocol to allow.
And then
They
changed
altered.
it back.
Yes, they altered the
changed it back.
protocol. Yep, to allow the lab techs to testify a certain way, and then a week later or so, they changed it back.
Changed it back. Yeah.
She was allegedly set up by her police husband.
Yes, that's
law
right.
enforcement husband for murder.
That's right.
Run, Bambi, Run. What's the movie they did about it?
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So that's the only one that I know of. T1. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Alice.
Miss Robin has joined us in chat. Hi, Robin. Nice to see you. It says, didn't Fabian's wife say it was a different day he was there, which contradicts what he
Yes.
said in court?
Yes, that's correct. Yes.
I don't
And
remember.
if you notice, a lot of people on the Avery salvage yard are not very good at remembering times and dates and events. They keep on
I'm not either.
Yeah. Hey, me too. If I don't have a digital
Yeah.
diary, I'm exactly the same, right? So why is it that law enforcement are taking that as a sign of being deceptive by Stephen and Brendan, when clearly these guys can't remember what they had for breakfast that morning?
And not only that, they did it in CAM. You know, especially Candace. She's really hammers on Stephen about the Spire and other events. So she takes this nefarious approach of what he's doing. And in fact, most people, unless it's some kind of really high-powered event, it's a mundane thing. You're not going to remember it. You're just not.
No.
So I'm wondering here too. Now, looking at this deviation, I mean, to me, this is. we need to look into this. I want to know, because this, to me, means it should have been signed up here on the line by the supervisor, and then a committee would have met and talked about it. That's what it says to me. It's not one or the other. To me, this should be both, because they're both on there.
Correct. Because this is so serious, right? You got to understand, this is extremely serious. This is to determine whether Teresa Horbach was actually shot in Stephen Avery's garage. So it is a very important piece of forensic evidence. So it has a lot of gravity. It has a lot of weight. It's not a trivial result, right?
Not at all.
It really is a turning point in the trial.
It is.
It also doesn't have the date filled out. Received by manual review committee on date.
That's right.
Too.
That's right. So that's what I'm saying. I don't think it's one or the other. I think it's both. And if that's true, man, that's another huge glaring issue for me for the crime lab. And Gon's talking about it like, hey, it's just common sense. I'm sure he did the right thing here.
Yeah, that's a massive issue, considering for the laboratory this was a one-off, as in they haven't done a deviation request forms as far as I'm aware. It needed to be discussed. It needed to be approved. All the I's had to be dotted. All the T's had to be crossed, because this is presented in a court of law.
Exactly. And they're changing a standard protocol that you would use for every other test that you do for the rest of your career. I mean, I think that was the point that Buting made also. I do think it was like 60,000. I could be wrong about that, but I know it was a huge number. And all of a sudden, you got to change your test.
Yeah,
this is the smoking gun evidence, for God's sake.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, literally smoking gun. Correct.
Literally. That's right.
Correct.
And what does it say here? It's been forwarded for approval on date. That's blank too. Just want to look at the rest of that form.
Yep, and here's the problem, right? You don't know whether this was a blank signed form by De Groot, do you?
No.
Right? So in other words, De Groot could have signed it, and Culhane then typed in her proposed deviation request.
That's
You know
right.
what I mean? And
Absolutely.
So that's why you need a proper paper trail, and you have to have all the appropriate signatures to determine, the legitimacy of what Culhane is trying to submit here.
Well, that was another thing. She said I could track this source. It was my DNA. Well, how can you track it? How did it get in there? She didn't track it. She just knew it was hers.
Yeah, that's what she meant. So she's basically saying, "Don't worry, guys, it's only me, right? So no problems. Just allow her." Whereas she failed to understand that she's had a contamination event. You know that picture that the video that you showed, her workbench, right at the start, that is a forensic nightmare. Her bench is not set up properly for PCR. She's got her work computer right next to her equipment. If you put that up again, everyone will see what I'm talking about. You never, ever have that set up. You always have a place where you put your data in a completely separate room. Because remember, you're using your fingertips to type on your keyboard. Imagine if Culhane was able to place accidentally Teresa Horbach's DNA on her keyboard. She types. She now has transference of DNA from her keyboard on her fingertips. She's touching tubes. Boom. That's how easy it is to contaminate your samples.
Oh yeah, right? It's so sensitive. By 2005,
very
2006.
Very sensitive. Correct.
Anthony House in chat. Jack has got a question. He says, "Has Zelna ever raised this issue in any of her motions?"
I'm going to say no, but I could be wrong, Anthony. I maybe Doc or someone else can remember differently. I just don't remember.
No. Basically, with Zelna, she wanted to debunk the bullet. That was the most important thing, debunking the bullet. Because, unfortunately, Judge Willis allowed Ida Meffel into evidence, so it's regarded as the truth.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Another question from Travis. Did you all notice the date of the actual firearms report matching FL to the gun?
I don't remember. I'm sure I've looked at it, but I don't remember, Travis.
Those documents are available because the bullet examiner examined the bullet first. Then gave it because the DNA testing, or was it the other way around? No, I have to double check that. Yeah,
that was Newhouse, right? That was Newhouse.
Correct.
T1 says, "Where is the proof? Where are the results?" Yeah. I just don't remember the date, Travis. I can't recall right now of that firearms report. I remember Newhouse. I know he blathered on quite a bit. He talked a lot. Alice, wasn't he the one that, or maybe Susan can remember, he had been in like 90 trials or something. It was a huge amount of trials he had testified in. I think he's the one. Anyway. All right. Any other questions before we go to clip number 4? You good, Alice?
No, I think we're all good for now, Jack.
Okay. I've got this labels. Okay, I want to make sure I'm... Okay, 1, 2, 3. We've done 3, so this is clip 4. I swear I missed one. Hold on, let me check something here right quick. I did miss one. How did I not get that in there? I could have swore I had this in here. It's actually the first clip I wanted to show. I don't think I removed it. Clip 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. There's clip 7 I didn't play. I'm going to play it because I want to get all these out there. I apologize for it being out of order, but I think it'll be okay. Let me get this loaded. Okay. Video file. All right, here we go. Did I play this one?
Going forward, and I'm not going to talk a lot about Brendan Dassey's interview at this point, but as a result of that interview...
I did play this one?
Yes.
Okay, I want to make sure. I don't know why it disappeared off my screen, but it did, out of my library. Okay, I apologize. Just want to make sure. All right, so I'm going to remove that one. All right, so I will play the next one. I think we're going to see a little bit of the. Well, we'll see. We'll see what we got here.
Where Sherry, because of the size of that,
she used it all up.
I didn't feel like by swabbing it that I would get enough DNA off of the item. So I actually put the entire bullet into the tube and washed all the DNA off that was on that tube.
There was nothing to re-extract from the bullet, so you couldn't do it over again. The only way you could have, if there had been additional sample to test, then you would do the whole process all over again.
Now, I'm pausing it right here for a reason, because it's exactly what Doc just said, because she didn't quantitate and divide the sample.
Yep,
she
and he knew it
do
too.
It again.
Gun actually knew it as well.
You know
Absolutely
what I find
not.
interesting?
That
Those cotton fibers on that bullet. It makes you wonder if Sherry did swab it first.
Yeah, I noticed that. Yeah,
And
we've talked about that before.
didn't get any DNA with the swab.
And you know what? That is very, very serious.
Yeah.
Do you get my drift? Remember
Oh,
what I
yeah.
said yesterday? If she had done a preliminary presumptive test and said, shit, there's nothing on this bullet, there's no blood, I'm not going to get anything, that then gives credence to the contamination, either deliberate or accidental.
Yep. Yep. You know, and I don't think it's the goal of any of us to necessarily paint Cherie as the nefarious type person at all. It is what it is. We can only talk about what we see.
Can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I just say something? I just found
Please.
something very, very important that I overlooked, and it's what you guys were talking about, Newhouse, right? I found the filing by Zellner, and Newhouse had examined the bullet underneath a microscope, and he noted no trace evidence on the bullet. You know what that means? Those MFers knew that there were no bone shards on the bullet.
Yeah, because he would have noted.
Which meant, which meant they went to court knowing it never struck Teresa in the head or bone. They knew it. And that explains why Kratz never categorically stated that the bullet had struck Teresa in the head and kept his mouth shut.
Because he couldn't.
these guys knew already that there were no bone shards in the bullet. Why? Because Newhouse examined the bullet under a microscope. We know that because he took photographs of the landing and grooving pattern. So
Right.
these guys were playing Fox in the courtroom. They already knew.
I just wonder what power scope he had, Doc. 'Cause he may have said it
High-powered.
somewhere.
It's
Huh?
high-powered. Yeah. If you see the landing and grooving patterns, you definitely would have seen the lead because the bone shards, they come up. You easily be able to see them under a microscope. So these
Wow.
guys knew. These guys knew that it never struck bone. And these guys presented item FL as being the bullet that had caused the beveling in the cranial bone fragments, and now explains why they never linked item FL to the cranial bone fragments, the flakes in the cranial bone fragments. Why? There were no bone shards in the bullet. Newhouse knew it.
That's interesting. That's really
Unreal.
interesting. By him listing no trace evidence.
Yep.
Hmm.
Yep.
I wonder. I can't remember his testimony because he went on quite a bit. I wonder if they talk about that any during testimony. I don't remember it, but that doesn't mean anything because he seemed to me like his testimony was at least an hour, maybe two. Susan probably remembers it too.
Can I just do this little quote?
Yep.
What Zona said was incredible. She goes, Mr. Newhouse is a reasonably competent firearms examiner who would have identified bone fragments embedded in the damaged bullet had they been present.
That's interesting.
Oh my
That's really
God.
interesting.
Yeah. I told you always pick up something new.
Yep.
I remember Newhouse. It was a real snooze fest.
Yeah. It was long. You remember it, don't you, Susan? I do.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Because when we went through and did the recordings. Yeah.
But
All right,
yeah,
let's
he
listen
would
to-
have known. He would have totally
Yeah.
known.
Well, I think we talked about that just a little bit, but
He
recognize the
probably knew
importance
it
of it
was
now.
wood.
Well, he might have, depending on the power of his microscope. All right, let's listen to the rest of. I'll back it just a tick here. All right, here we go.
Then you would do the whole process all over again.
That's right.
And Sherry wouldn't be teaching at that time.
Because this was a little unusual, most of our samples are swabbings or cuttings. I had two of our newer analysts sit next to my workbench and watch me. I felt like
There's the computer, Doc.
Yeah, look, I can list about 15 to 20 items there that are absolutely dangerous to do PCR or any form of extractions right there. That's a multi-purpose desk. Normally, you would do any type of extractions in a fume hood to make sure that you don't cross-contaminate. Look at her stuff. Look at her bench. Oh, no. That's a disaster right there.
Yeah. People that don't understand a fume hood, that is an enclosed opening area that has
Sure.
a negative exhaust. It pulls everything away.
And you know what Butine discovered, right? That Culhane had the forensic samples at her workbench in a cupboard.
Yeah.
So instead of placing them back in storage, she had them with her at her bench.
Right. Exactly. Never even thought about the computer being there. All right, here we go.
I was far enough away from my workbench so that my talking wouldn't interfere, but obviously that was incorrect.
I think she realized that there was an error that occurred, and there was still probative evidence there that could be gained. And so because of that, within the protocols, she was allowed to ask for a deviation. Now, it was up to the supervisors to see whether or not this situation warranted it.
The FBI gives guidelines
Supervisors,
and has
plural.
standards that all the crime labs should follow. But sometimes a situation can come up. You have to allow an element of common sense when you look at the data, and this clearly called for it, and Sherry made the right call.
Well, I guess that becomes the question. Did Sherry make the right call?
Correct.
Sherry didn't make the call. Her supervisor made the call.
Well, her work buddy did.
Yes.
Yeah, whoever the heck she was.
DeGroot.
DeGroot.
She's the one that signed it.
She's like
Yeah.
Colhane, but in the other laboratory.
Yeah. Basically the same job that Sherry does at the Madison Crime Lab. Yeah, I really want to know. I really want to understand this protocol aspect of it at the bottom of that form. Now that we've really looked at it, is it supposed to be signed off by the supervisor and a committee look at it and say, okay, yes, no, and they have a discussion about it, which I think that's how they were supposed to have done it.
See, Groffy gave the impression that it was going to be automatically approved. Wrong. It was a judgment call on whether to allow it or not to allow it. But when you consider all the errors that Cherie Colhane did regarding that piece of forensic evidence, you never allow that type of evidence through. That's a massive issue right there.
Yep, I agree. Okay. Any questions? Let's see. Disco says, what does Groffy know? Well, I mean, that's a good question. It's a fair one, too, because, Groffy had been there for 30 years, I think. I don't think he was far away from retirement. So, to me, he would have definitely known the protocol. And if he's just saying, well, she made a little goof up, and, like it happens all the time. And if that's true, then there's a bigger problem, a much bigger problem. Because if you're just going to fudge it and wink your way through, what's the point? Just pick somebody you want to be guilty and say, yeah, well, his DNA was on here, so.
Correct. So what you do is you've actually removed any element of bias. Do you understand?
That's right.
You've now opened yourself up to corruption in the crime lab. That is serious. So in other words, who is this person that we got this sample from? Oh, it's a Stephen Avery case. And guess what? They allowed it through. Now, what will be interesting is if this was double-blind tested. In other words, they had this sample, they didn't know what case it came from, and they looked at the evidence that was presented in front of them. All right, we don't know what this case is. What have you got? Okay, you've got this. Well, according to what you've presented, I can't approve this form, right? It bypasses all our safety nets. It bypasses all our protocols. I can't approve this. Because Cherie Colhane knew exactly what the case was, where the sample came from, the mere fact that she had received a call from Tom Fassbender directing her, try to put her in his garage and trailer. This is a massive conflict of interest. And when people are looking for skepticism, she just provided that very basis to be skeptical. Correct?
That's right.
And then,
to me.
And then when a special prosecuting attorney says, don't worry, guys, look the other way. Everything is fine. Common sense will prevail. You go, oh my God, what the hell is happening in that crime lab? What the hell is happening, guys?
And I think Buting was onto that. I think he was very well aware. I'm actually going to send this deviation form to Buting and say, look at the bottom of this. What does this really mean? He would know. I think he'll tell me. Hopefully he'll answer. But what does this really mean? Does that mean the supervisor, her direct supervisor, was supposed to sign it, and then they were supposed to sit down with the rest of the lab techs and discuss it? It may even potentially have had to go to other Wisconsin crime labs, because it wouldn't just affect Madison.
No,
it would affect them all.
That's correct. Because like I said, if you allow Colhane for this, then potentially you've opened up the floodgates.
To me, yes. You know, and I understand that, you know, again, this is looking at it from the other side. I understand, you know, if you don't believe in the protocol or that it doesn't matter, then this is all moot point. We're just blathering. But you think about yourself. You think about yourself in a situation where your DNA or some biological sample matters. Do you want a clean sample or do you not? And that's where the whole argument comes in.
Yeah, all you need, and I think Mr. President has maybe alluded to it, all you need is a whistleblower in the Wisconsin State Crime Lab to blow that whole place apart in terms of dodgy practices. And I think Buting was hinting at that when he released that document, that there was a person who was drunk and had to be reprimanded and who was working on the Stephen Avery case.
That's right.
Not good.
No, there was a pretty big report. I remember reading it at least once where Buting launched that investigation into the Madison Crime Lab. It was a pretty eye-opening report, too.
Yep.
Okay. All right. What's T1 saying here? The verbiage with the deviation protocol is what keep them in check. It is written that way for a reason. That's right. It has to work every time. And she talked about in, you know, that clip, you know, sometimes these tests, you know, the situations are different. And I agree, there are certain situations that could come up a little bit different. But in this instance, no. Sorry. To me, this was a straight test. There's nothing spectacular about it, except she said that she didn't see any stains on it visually. And as Susan pointed out, what's these cotton fibers doing on that bullet? That's very interesting. I can't believe that.
Swab on or swab off? That is the question.
Yeah, absolutely. We're loose. Oh no, Alice is still here. I haven't heard Alice. Alice, are you still here or did you fall asleep?
No, I'm still here.
Oh, okay.
Still here, just biting myself. But yeah, I mean, Jack, what you were just saying about, you know, people are going to believe what they want to believe, right? I mean, we all know that there's been at least 250 experts that have come out and said that what happened to Brendan is awful, disgusting, should never have happened, should never have went to court. And these are people that have studied this field, who have been in the field of coercion and everything like that are coming out and saying this stuff. You know, it's not just us, the average Joe, or anything like that, that's coming out and saying this. It's 250 experts who are in their field, are the top-notch people that are saying this, but people still don't believe it. When you get the hardliners like that, sometimes it doesn't matter what you put out, what you present, what you say, they're still going to believe their ideology of what happened. I mean, it's like in Luke's case. There is 5 different male samples that was on and around Jodie's murdered and mutilated body, and not one of them is Luke's. But nobody cares about that. You know, that's all right for that to have happened and been on her body and everything like that, you know, because they've got their man, you know, which we all know is a load of bullshit. So when you get these hardliners like that, there's no way that you can change their mind. There's nothing that we're going to be able to put out on MAM or anything like that are going to make them believe it. But I would just like to say to them, you know, yeah, fair enough, don't believe us, but believe the 250 experts that are known in that field of coercion and everything like that are saying what happened to Brendan is awful and disgusting and should never have happened and should never have went to trial. You know what I mean? Because these are the people that you'd be relying on in court as an expert in court for other cases. So why is it all right for them to be an expert in other cases on coercion, but it's not all right for them to be behind Brendan and be meaning what they're saying? Do you see what I mean?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I would rather
Wait.
believe the experts than believe somebody who, like Candice, is maybe think my opinion. You know, you believe the experts, like Doc and that says. We follow the science, we follow the documents, everything like that. You know, that's what you want to go by.
Well, and the expectation is that, you know, even in, especially in, not just even, but especially in a laboratory setting, you expect protocols to be followed. And even in this case, they weren't. They weren't followed.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But that's like anywhere though, Jack. No matter what place you work in, whether it's a lab, a retail shop, a factory, a marketing company, they've got rules and they've got policies that you have to follow. And if you don't follow those rules and policies, then you get sacked, point blank, or you get shut down, or whatever, you know. And
well, that comes back to the consequences end of it, which apparently in this case there are none, because, you know, as you know, we found out later there's wood and red paint embedded into that lead, wherever the hell it came from, whatever it is. And then Doc's just found this section in the Newhouse thing that says no trace evidence found.
Yeah, which meant that they already pre-knew, and that means that Kratz and the other guys strategized on how they were going to get Idomefel admitted into court, and they had to keep their mouth shut that it actually hit Teresa Horbach in the skull. So it was an incredible amount of trickery that was done, and it worked.
It did.
Oh, who got the bullet first, Sherry?
Now, it would have been, yeah, look, I have to check that because normally, damn it, normally you would, there's a sheet that says how the evidence was transferred, because normally you would do DNA first.
Yeah.
Because of fear of contamination.
I would think so, yeah.
So normally
I would
you
think so.
DNA first, hand over the bullet, and then do examination. Now, Luke Haig proved that if you shoot the .22 bullets into bone, even if you do a DNA extraction, it doesn't remove the bone shards. And because he looked at the Idomefel under the microscope, he would have realized, oh God, there's no bullet shards here. This thing could not have hit skull. He would have had to have reported that, and Kratz would have had to have known. For example, what have you found on the bullet? Is there brain matter? Is there blood?
Yep.
Is there skin? Is there hair? Is there any evidence that it struck a human being? And the answer is no.
No. So now they're just saying that this bullet just grazed Teresa somehow.
Correct. And they don't know how.
Right. Okay. All right. What else we got? I'm looking through the live chat here to see if there's anything we need to address before we play this last clip. I see Galataki's in the audience. I'm almost watching
keep
closely.
an eye on that one. That Galataki, he's trouble.
He's a rascal, I can tell you.
Aye.
For those that don't know, Galataki is my second oldest son.
Miss Robin in chat has got a good comment. She says, they kept it hidden all these years. They just think no one outside of Wisconsin will realize it. Yeah, I completely agree with that. They did not expect Ma'am to be as popular as it is and for people to go deep diving as much as they have. They thought, that's it. We've done our job. Stephen's behind bars. We've roped Brendan into it and all. We've got 2 for the price of 1. Hands rubbed, you know, fully clean. That's it. Our job is done. And they thought that would be the end of it. And they are sadly mistaken.
Promotions given, awards.
Yep.
Yeah.
Awards. Yeah. Award-winning investigation.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what that got based on, but well, there's no doubt they were pretty busy. I guess too busy to head over to the burn pit when they found all these alleged bones, but they were got awards for it. Let's see, Newhouse got it first, is what T1's saying. Before Culhane, and a plastic waxy seen on Alamo film was believed to be from the ballistic testing. Well, I think that was KZ's expert that found the waxy stuff that people thought were chapstick for a long time. The chapstick tube that they brought from.
Yeah, T1 is correct. It's from ballistic testing. They embed the bullet in wax to keep it still.
Yeah. Yeah, I would have thought though it would have went to Culhane first. Yeah, we need to check on that to be sure, because I would have thought Culhane because of potential contamination.
Yeah, we need the chain of evidence document.
Yeah, I'm sure we've got. Yeah, I'm sure we've got it. I just need to know the property tag number. That way we can probably run it down. Okay. Anything else? We move to this last clip.
No, we're all good, Jack.
Okay. All right, I got one more clip. I don't think this one's very long. I believe it may have graphy in it, but I can't remember. It's been oh wait, we got one comment from Mr. President.
Yeah, he says, in my opinion, Kratz never planned for any of this to go to trial. He was trying to overwhelm Stephen with press coverage and damaging evidence while making him unable to afford a defense. So he just plead guilty.
That would take a plea.
That's one way of looking at it. Put pressure on him, get him to plead guilty or take a plea deal or something like that, like they wanted Brendan to do. And they're making a big hoo-ha out of Brendan not taking a plea deal, and Pa telling Brendan and that not to take a plea deal and not to speak to them and everything. I would have told him exactly the same. I would have told him, keep your mouth shut, don't say nothing. If they want to speak to you, have your lawyer in the room. Plain, straight and simple. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that was they really pressured Brendan like really bad. I don't know. I don't think there was ever any discussions with. Well, I don't know. I don't remember hearing any discussions of any kind of plea for Stephen. I don't think he would have ever went that road at all.
No, Jack, not at all. No, I don't think he would have. He didn't do it for the 18-year stint that he done. You know what I mean? So he's certainly not going to do it for this because he never done it. So.
Yeah, this is an interesting comment. Convicting a murder has made people doubt. Yeah, I get that, and that's why I had some of the conversation that I had at the beginning of the live, and I understand that. I get it because you have people on saying all these things about Stephen's past, and a lot of it's hearsay. To me, it's hearsay. Maybe to other people, it's the truth about what Stephen did in his past when he was 18, 20 years old, 21, whatever. He did some really stupid shit. He broke into places. He is involved with the cat incident, all of that stuff. And then later on the Sandra Morse incident. But this is the reason these past incidents, unless somebody gets on the stand to testify, those things can't come into play. Which I get that. At the same time, you can't. I can't make that leap from those things to this horrendous murder of Teresa and what was done with her remains. I can't go there. I can't see it. It's a major leap. And then
either, Jack. I'm totally
allegedly dragging Brendan along for that ride. I'm sorry, I don't see that at all.
Nope.
Yeah, I agree I agree with Ms. Robin. It didn't change my mind. It's made me actually dig in further about some of the things that have been said, and we're going to cover that when we start our new podcast series. We're going to dive into some of these areas and explore what was in CAM, and then what material that we do have. We're going to dig into that, and I think people are going to see a little bit different light. And I don't think most people know that Candy Avery was interviewed 6 times, starting from January of 2006 until June with the DCI. 6 times. And at least one of those, maybe 2, Earl was there too. Again, this goes back to that November 9, 2005 interview that we don't have all of. It's redacted. What the hell was said? So,
yeah, T1 says, would any of US question this investigation, evidence, or trial if 1985 wrongful conviction did not happen?
There you go. That all began it led to the lawsuit and the depositions. And the depositions, I don't care which way you spin it, they were going terrible for the state. Absolutely awful.
Yep. And Candice out and out lied on the scam because she said that the insurance was going to pay for the $36 million lawsuit. That's a load of shite. Because the insurance companies were only going to pay so much. And
they wouldn't have paid it. They wouldn't have. They wouldn't have paid at all if they found that officers were doing something outside of their duties.
Yeah, but the way she put it across, Jack, is that the insurance companies were paying this $36 million lawsuit. No, they weren't. It was said actually in, I don't know if it was in CAM 1 or if it was in CAM 2, but it was actually said that the insurance companies were not going to pay the full amount, and that the fall was going to be on Kasurik and Bogle personally. It would have came out of their pocket.
Well,
so
it would have been.
That's
it would
why
have been.
this lawsuit had to disappear.
It would have been a 3-way thing if they would have found fault, because they were added to the lawsuit. It was Manitowoc County, Kasurik, and Bogle. So they would have all 3 been. There's a culpability thing there. And then, of course, Stephen gets arrested right before Kasurik is getting ready to testify. And, ultimately it ended up, I still get aggravated because they didn't go forward with the depositions. It really, really bothers me. That was a huge mistake. Huge mistake.
Yep. We've got a new person in chat, Jack, Niaka, and they said he was never going to get 36 million. No way.
No.
Hello and welcome to Foul Play. It's nice to see a new name. No, I mean, we know that. We know that he wasn't going to get $36 million, but he would have got a pretty sum, or should have got a pretty sum, But there's motive right there. Where is the motive for Stephen? I want somebody to point out to me in any documentation or anything like that, the motive for Stephen killing this lassie. I have never seen any. I've never came across any, and I still haven't found any.
Well, that's why that they had to paint him as a terrible, sex fiend monster. They came out of prison angry, and that's why they did what they did. For several months leading up to when he did settle for the $400,000. The insurance. I know that I've read that there were 5 insurance companies that split that cost. So none of them were out. Yeah, go ahead, Doc.
Can I just make a comment about what NIAC has said? It's very interesting because Sean Reck and Anjanette Levy spoke with, I think it was Joel, Surviving the Survivor. It was very interesting because, in fact, I even did a little clip on it. Sean Reck reckons that Stephen Avery likely would have got between $5 to $8 million.
Yep.
And it's interesting because NIAC made the same comment that what Sean Reck has said. Basically, why would Stephen do this? and he's saying Sean Reck made the comment that Stephen Avery was narcissistic. He couldn't get any sex. So essentially the motive was to commit, he wanted sex. So that's why he killed Teresa Halbach. So the mere fact that he was standing to become a multi-millionaire, he couldn't control his sexual urges, and hence this resulted in the death of Teresa Halbach. That came straight from Sean Reck, which was very interesting.
Very well.
Very
That's kind of what I figured. That I think that if they would have, I think that most judges in civil, especially big civil trials, probably even smaller ones, they try to get the two parties to work it out of court instead of going to a jury trial. And I know that actually happened in Coburn v. Netflix. That happened. There's other cases that I've read. The judge typically tries to get them to settle out of court. Of course, Netflix was never going to settle, or never, no way.
And
Niak
don't
has
blame
another
them.
question. They say, do you think he settled for much less because of the pressure of the new investigation only? Absolutely.
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah.
Yep.
He needed lawyers. His lawyer was his name.
Well, it was Glenn and Kelly.
Yeah.
Oh, you're talking about Loy and the other guy, public
No,
defenders.
I'm talking about Glenn and Kelly.
Oh, okay.
They kind of thought because of these new charges that, there was just, it was the best thing to do.
Yeah, and the problem, even though he had received that $400,000, the Halbach family put a claim on it.
Well,
They
first
did.
he had to pay,
The attorneys, correct.
160 for attorneys or something like that.
Correct.
For Glenn and Kelly, got 160,000 of that.
Correct.
And then they tried to put a hold on that other one with the lawsuit, but that didn't work.
No. Yeah, wrongful death suit. That's right. What did Miss Robbins say? I'm looking here.
Who did it then? That's a good question.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's
Lots
true.
of suspects.
Yeah, I've got mine, and a lot of people have their own as well. I know there are a couple of guys that really weren't investigated. One of them moved in Teresa's house. It was an ex-boyfriend. He moved in very quickly and stayed for however long.
Yeah, was involved in the search party, gave it cameras and mats.
In charge of the search party, actually.
Yeah.
Lawyers paid every bit of that $400,000.
I'm sorry?
We got nothing.
Oh, yeah, lawyers
paid every bit of that.
That's right. Glenn and Kelly got 160,000, and Beauty and Strain got the remaining 240.
40? Yeah.
Yep.
Mr. President says, in my opinion, the motive is that we happened to see Stephen Avery's name written on Teresa's auto trader paperwork at her home when he saw Schmidt's check. If he hadn't, Teresa would likely have been tossed into a ditch.
Yeah, I can't comment there because of where things were found, but yeah, we're all just really grasping at straws to say who actually committed this crime. I just don't feel it was. I just don't feel it was. No, I don't feel it was Stephen and Brendan. If I did, I wouldn't be here. I'd be off to another case or doing something else. I promise you that.
Yep. Without looking
back. The actions of the state and state actors tells me that there's something else. We've not seen it yet. We don't know.
Yeah, I mean that's just it though, Jack. You know what I mean? We're probably never really going to know the real story, what happened to Teresa. You know what I mean?
Short of somebody stepping forward, probably not.
Yeah, exactly. So all we can go on is the documentation and things like that we've got, right? And that's what we've done. We've not just watched the documentary. We
No.
have to. I mean, some of us have been on this since for 8 years. Some are 5 years. Some are 4 years. You know what I mean? And there's still new people coming in, left, right, and centre.
December
So
21st, 2015 is when I watched Ma'am.
yeah,
Wow. 3 days after it came out.
That's right.
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah. It was 2 or 3 days. Yeah, I think it was the 21st. Now that I'm thinking in my mind. And immediately
yeah,
after I watched it, I went to Reddit. I was like,
yeah.
oh my God.
And you had nothing back then, though, Jack. You know what I mean?
No.
You had nothing to go on, bar what was in the documentary. You know what I mean? You hadn't FOIA'd anything. You hadn't got any documents or calls or anything like that. You know,
No.
but you were patient enough. You took your time. You dug in. You got documents, whether it was other groups that you were involved with at the time, like Reddit and stuff
No.
like that. You's done the work. You know what I mean? You've done the work, and
I
you're
really
still
wasn't.
here.
Yeah, I really wasn't involved. I joined the family group probably a couple months after that. I don't remember, but I remember joining the family group, and then of course that turned into a disaster rather quickly. That was another, little present, one of the big dogfights between the truthers and the guilters. A guilter somehow made an admin, invited more of her admin friends, and they threw everyone in the family out, kicked them out, took over the group. It was crazy. There was like 70,000 people in that family group. Not kidding. It was a disaster.
Yeah, I've heard
Yep.
stories.
It was crazy. I hadn't said anything. I got thrown out. It's crazy, man. It was just crazy times back then. But yeah, I mean, we had, some newspaper clips. There was a few news clips that we were able to grab pretty quickly. But no real documentation, no. And there was a lot of wild speculation and so forth at the time. But, once we got a bit more organized and did the crowdsourcing and started getting documentation, that helped us a lot. Get on the path. Ma'am kicked the door open, but Ma'am has been left so far behind. I mean, you got to give it credit for what it did, but for me personally, the documentation, the phone calls, even the jail calls, all that takes far more precedent than what Ma'am does.
Yeah. Dreamscape has joined us in chat. Hi, Dreamscape. Nice to see you. They said, I spent an entire year doing a deep dive, full-time hours, read everything I could find. I'm still supporting Stephen to this day. The evidence is too questionable. Yeah, I mean, it's not even just the evidence. It's the actions, the cops and everything like that. That's questionable. You know what I mean? And when these things happen, it's supposed to be beyond a reasonable doubt. You know what I mean? But there is there's too much doubt in this case. Far too much. Too many questions.
I look at, and I know others have looked at other murder cases that are complicated. There's always questions that we can't get past. I've seen it numerous times, but typically they're not like pages and pages of questionable actions. There's just not. There are some that get called up as a reason for somebody not being guilty, but when you have this much documentation, you've got a problem, in my opinion. I know other people don't see it that way, but I do. We got an N4 has got another comment. There are only three options. Avery did it, and Brendan was coerced into confessing. Avery did it, and Brendan was not coerced. Or Bobby did it, and Frank Steve. Well, no, there's actually more than just that, in my opinion. N4.
So many more options.
Yeah, there really are. Far too many to go into in this setting. It's the wrong setting anyway, but I think there are far more options than that. Again, I look at end result actions of what the cops did, what the state did, what they've continued to do. And again,
Yeah.
if this case is on the up and up, why is there such a problem in getting some of these documents? What's the problem? Just show it. Show us what you got.
It's both the evidence and the absence of evidence.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Like photos.
Like edited flower video, like an edited flower video.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's another one.
there's taking so long to get just even dispatch calls. That took an act of Congress, literally, to get what we do have, and we still don't have anything from November 4th from MTSO. No dispatch call or no radio transmissions. We got a couple of calls from inside the office, but that's not even really a dispatch call. And to say that they don't have them, how does that happen? They've got the 3rd through the 12th, but nothing for November 4. How does that? I just don't understand how that happens. Like nothing happened in the Hallbach case on November 4th over the radio or on dispatch calls. I'm sorry, that doesn't work for me. It just doesn't.
Yeah, rumor has it, says, it drives me crazy when guilters say anyone who thinks Stephen and Brendan are innocent is just because they just watched Ma'am. No, Ma'am has nothing to do with why I believe they are innocent.
No.
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, all Ma'am done for me was open the door wide open to the amount of corruption and injustice there is in the US system. You know. And then I've went further. I couldn't believe what I was seeing, and I thought, no, surely these guys are out. There's no way that they done this, and I found out that they weren't. And then I found Eric Hosey. God bless him. And that's what got me on my travels. And there has been nothing in Scam that has changed my mind whatsoever. I still believe the boys are innocent. I still believe Brendan was coerced and had nothing to do with it. And I still believe that Stephen is innocent and had nothing to do with Teresa. Nothing.
Yeah. Again, I know there's always questions that come up in these complicated cases. It happens often, more often than you think. But this many problems within a case, it's a lot. I mean, it's almost overwhelming to even think about. For me, I mean, I probably could write a book, but I'm not going to do that. Let's see what else we got before we play this last clip. Somebody said, ma'am just opened the door, and that's what it did for me. I mean, I knew that there were problems because I was looking at true crime anyway, but not to the depth that I've certainly went in other cases. I was reading about it years ago, and it's just exploded. So, all right.
Yeah. T1 says, every time a new piece of evidence or record is released, it doesn't point to Stephen and Brendan's guilt, only to more reasonable doubt and their innocence. Yep, I completely agree.
Yeah. No matter the liberties that ma'am took, it didn't affect the trial. We have to, that's another thing we have to remember and keep in front of us. And I got to say, just from my personal knowledge of what I've seen in CAM, they took far more liberties and a direct line at making a murder, no matter how they had to take that line. There's some real deception. I'm going to name one. We're going to talk about it, of course, when we do our in-depth. But if you think about starting in episode 1 and you've got going back to, the early mid-'80s and so forth, and all these things that Stephen were doing, the robberies and so forth. And then they would drop in stuff from 2005. Then go back to 83.
Ma'am really did whitewash Stephen's robberies and all that kind of thing.
They did. They did.
There was a lot more, and it was, they were more serious than what Ma'am would have you think. But
Yeah, I know. That's what what I'm saying is they didn't stay in 82 or 83, whatever. I'm talking about the early 80s. They didn't do that. They were dropping in elements of 2005 into that scenario.
yeah, they're saying, look what he did here. So he's a murderer. Basically.
That's right. That's right. That's exactly right. So it's deceptive. My opinion, it's deceptive. They can do however they want. It's their documentary. I'm just saying, from my perspective, this is something that they did to the viewer, and they did it with intent. So is that really fair reporting, or are they just taking a swipe at man because they left that part out? Or more or less what Susan said, they whitewashed it. So we're going to be taking a look at that more in depth. Wherever it leads, again, I just want the truth. I want the full truth. I don't want what Zellner says is complete gospel. I don't want what they say. What do they say? The truth is a three-edged sword. Your side, their side, and the truth. I want the full truth. Right?
I think we all do, Jack.
That's right. And that's why we've gone back to the roots of the case without interference and having a look at the documents in the clear light of day without being persuaded either by MAM or by CAM. Yep. And so that's why I really love our approach, what we do. We have a lot of feedback from people in chat, people that come on Discord, of all walks of life and all sorts of experience. And that way, I honestly do believe that one day we will find the truth, good, bad, or otherwise. And none of us are going to stop it. No documentary is going to sway people this way or another way. It's a matter of going back to the original documentation and reading it and making up your own mind. Who are the potential suspects? Who's likely to have had potential access to Teresa Horbach? Who could have figured this out? And the issue here, guys, in my honest belief, is that this is a murder that's complicated, because I honestly believe in my heart this is a two-part setup. The actual murder itself and the frame job, the setup of Stephen Avery. I don't believe, actually, having said that, I know of only one person who could have carried out both. I'm not prepared to say any names. I think Jack knows who I'm talking about. There's only one person I know that could have actually done both. If that individual is not involved, then I see it as a two-part setup. The murder itself and an opportunity to frame Stephen. And at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, did Stephen have any friends in law enforcement? And the simple answer is no. There's no way that any police officer, law enforcement officer, knowing that Stephen is suing their establishment, their good name, right? If they have to, put it this way, salt the evidence to persuade a judge and a jury, I don't think any of them would have any issues whatsoever. This concept that it's a massive conspiracy is complete garbage.
Oh, it's rubbish. It's complete rubbish.
All you need is one or two people. And look who drove. Sorry, Susan. Sorry.
No problem. Go ahead.
I was going to say, look who drove the outcome. Two people did. Culhane and Dr. Eisenberg.
That's right.
What they said and what they didn't say.
That's right.
How many people do you need it on the Avery salvage yard at the plant? One or two max. That's
two max. Yeah.
Two max.
Was it Fassbender who said in CAM that it would have been all of Manitowoc County?
It was Earl too. Earl said that.
County,
remember they showed that. Remember they showed that scene where how them
everybody
all in
the conspiracy. I mean, please.
Had like 80 cop cars down Avery Road lined up. All these people, these hundreds of officers, all these people are involved. No.
No.
Please.
No.
silly.
Yeah, I was
even
just going to
suggest
say,
that.
I was going to say that, in a laboratory, when you're doing these experiments and you're handing all this forensic evidence, most of the tubes are in ice buckets, right? Because you've got to keep everything cold.
Right.
Only the person doing the manipulation can know what can potentially influence the outcome of any result. Unless you've got a video camera over that person's shoulder, or a supervisor watching what they do, the person manipulating the DNA, the samples, you can have any outcome you want. So therefore, Kratz's supposition that people were walking around with sweat, with DNA, kidnapping guns, shooting Teresa in the head, planting bullets, is mere show, right? Mere
is.
smoke and mirrors to make people like us and everybody else look like a bunch of yahoos and idiots. This was very, very easily done in the laboratory. And remember, Jack 61, those two laboratory technicians who tainted all the drug samples.
How to fix a drug scandal. How to fix a drug scandal.
10,000 cases had to be overturned and thrown out.
That's right.
Yeah, the T1 in chat has got a question. He says, what would it take for you to believe Stephen and Brendan are guilty of this crime? Not the narrative the state presented, the crime period.
Yeah, I can't get, with the state story, I can't get there. I just can't. I've tried.
I've got a very reasonable suggestion, right? The only way this works in my mind is this. Brendan Dassey has got no idea of what happened. The kid is 100% innocent. No question. There's no forensic evidence against that kid. Nothing. If Stephen Avery had committed this brutal, brutal murder on someone that had nothing against him, he did it in a manner that is completely opposite to what Kratz presented in court. 100%. If Stephen did this, it was not on the Avery salvage yard. Now, the state are locked into a narrative involving Brendan that is not supported by forensic evidence. And that always comes back to what Susan said. Something happened at CUS. It didn't work. It couldn't work to point the blame on Stephen. And they abandoned it. Just an opinion.
Yeah, he would have to have, well, number one, he'd have to have a lot of time and privacy to carry this out.
Correct.
And I'm not seeing it. I'm just not seeing it.
How about a piece of evidence with a mixture of their blood?
Correct. Yep.
No, there isn't any. And you would have expected Culhane to have found that in the back. And I'm not sure if it gets addressed in this last clip. I think I did grab it. I think this one's going to be about Groffy saying, well, if they didn't like the result, why did they just not mention it at all? And we're going to get into that conversation. We talked about it a little bit last night, but
and Dreamscape, if I could just butt in.
Yeah.
Yep. He or her said it perfectly. It's called opportunity. You need privacy. You need time. You need to plan this, and you need to get away with it, right?
Well,
remember, both Stephen and Brendan, no one had noticed any Okay, think about it. When you've got cops knocking on your door and you've just come out of prison, you've been released, you've got a massive civil suit going on, you're probably looking at them thinking, why are they questioning me? Right?
Yeah.
Wouldn't you be a little bit nervous? I would be. Right?
Hell yeah.
But if you committed this crime, you're not going to leave for incriminating forensic evidence where a high school kid could find it, right?
He's not going to let the cops come in and just search his property. He'd be like, no, you need to get a warrant. No, thank you.
That's correct.
And he just said, go on in, look around, look all you want.
Go for it.
Yeah. So that end of it doesn't make any sense. But yes, opportunity, you know, and you think about, again, I didn't understand the complication of burning a human body. This goes back to, again, time and heat and fuel and how hot that fire would have had to have been to calcine on those bones. I didn't understand all that shit until Doc and others have explained it to me. It takes hours with a massive fuel source. You'd have to have a bellows of some kind of homemade bellows. We've talked about that.
Yeah, if you had found a half burnt or 3/4 burnt Teresa Horbach, hey, I would have personally given the electric chair to Stephen and Brendan. But the mere factor that you have a small amount of tiny bone fragments, that is a worry, because what he achieved is what a professional crematorium achieves: total thermal destruction of a human being, right? And then how do you explain how 60% of her skeletal remains are missing? And now CAM is saying, yep, those bones in the Manitowoc County gravel pit are indeed human. What the hell, guys?
What about the flesh, the remaining flesh?
Correct.
Yep. Yeah, it's going to take something far more than what I've seen. And there's going to have to be some questions answered that I don't think they will ever answer. I don't think we'll ever know. They've not been anywhere near honest in their investigation and, in my opinion, on what they presented at trial. And even the jury was messed with. There's just all kinds of problems. Again, understanding there's always questions. I get that. But not to this degree. I'm sorry. There's just not in my opinion. Anyway, let's play this last little clip. We've been at it about 3 hours now. Actually, a little over 3 hours. So let's play this last clip. We can discuss it, and then we'll wrap up for the night. Here we go.
Basically, she was doing her job. She was being honest about how she was doing her job. Everything was notated. There was nothing being hidden.
It was in her report. It's in the discovery we gave the defense.
Goes back to integrity. She's saying, hey, look, I ended up getting some of my DNA on the sample. If we wanted to hide it, why would she admit to it?
In the computer?
Yes.
And that's exactly right. As we discussed before, I'm not in that industry, but the industry that I worked in, we used gas chromatograph, and actually, in another place I worked, we used other testing type material. It all got fed into the computer, and we couldn't delete it. You couldn't just go in and say, "Oh, I don't like that result. Let's just delete that." It was reported. And
because
Doc can talk. Yeah, Doc can talk about that some in his professional career.
Yeah, because it's a crime laboratory, and there are legal ramifications on the results that they get. Everything needs to be documented. Imagine having the ability to alter a result. That's called scientific fraud. That'll get you in jail. So Culhane had nowhere to run. And proof of that is that she would have made sure that the negative control disappeared with her DNA in it. Unfortunately, there was no recourse, right? Once the results are recorded, you need to print them out. They're kept in the computer. Because remember, you need to present the evidence to a supervisor to say, these are my results. Can you sign off on them, please? Okay, let me check your electrospherograms. Fantastic. Or I see a problem here. Culhane had no way to determine what the outcome of those results were. They're kept in the computer. And that's exactly what happened when she tested the pubic hair. She had no prior knowledge what the outcome was going to be. The computer spat out a profile. She placed that profile into the database, the CODIS database, the Wisconsin criminal database, and boom, out popped not Stephen Avery's name, but Gregory Allen's name, to her horror. So she's got no control and no influence on what the result will show.
Right. Yeah, so, you got that end of it. I just, if you think about, again, I mentioned this last night, if you think about something where like a crime lab or something where information is critical, and a lab tech really hoses up their work in whatever capacity, it doesn't matter what, but they have the ability to say, yeah, you know what, I'm just going to delete that result. You think about that. Now, I just personally don't think they would have that kind of access. I'm not saying that somebody up the food chain might not have that access, but I think it's going to have to be some kind of administrator, and I really doubt that they would do it. I don't know that, but I just don't think they would have that kind of access. I think it's automatically recorded into a system that gets reported.
Yes.
And so, you hear gone, well, she turned her work in, we weren't trying to hide anything. Well, no, she turned the deviation in, but there was no report. It just so happened that Buting found it and made a big deal out of it. Because it is a big deal.
Correct.
He says, I turned it over in Discovery.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Exactly what they did.
Yeah, with thousands of other reports.
Exactly. So,
and Dreamscape in chat says, quote unquote, try to put her in the garage, not a double blind test.
Yeah, that was the message that Fassbender left for Culhane at the lab. Having that access again, it points to bias. To me, people can say it and take that a different way, but to me that points to bias. He's saying he's guilty. He's giving her a directive. Try to put her in the house or the garage.
Yep.
I'm not saying that's right. I'm just saying that's my opinion.
Yep. And T1's got a question. Yep. Does anyone believe Stephen could keep his mouth shut this long if he was guilty? Years lost, Brendan's life and innocence lost, Matt Avery passing away, etc., etc. I do not think Stephen Avery is strong enough to stay quiet.
Well,
no, I don't think.
Not for something
I don't know. I mean,
if he says he didn't do it, and he didn't do it, that'd be pretty tough to. Yeah, it'd be pretty tough. Stephen he's talked about a lot. I mean, let's just face it.
I mean, he had 18 years practice. He was innocent. But if he were guilty now, he could fall back on that, what he did for 18 years, is my thought, if he were in fact guilty.
It's possible, I guess. But
yeah, I mean, it's possible, but I mean, Stephen might be a CUNT, right? Really, but I don't think he's that much of a CUNT that he would let Brendan go down all this time. I really don't. I mean, yeah, he's not a great guy. He's done stupid things and everything like that. But I honestly can't see him sitting in jail and letting Brendan rot in jail, knowing that he didn't do anything, that it was Stephen that done it, if that was the case, and let Brendan sit there and rot until 2048. I don't see it. But then anything's possible. I mean, like we say, anything's possible. But in my opinion, no. I don't think if Stephen done it, he would let Brendan sit in jail for this length of time. I really don't.
I don't think greed is a strong enough word for him to. No, I don't think so. No. I mean, you got to think about him where he's at, and that kind of environment. I can't see it. I mean, is your life really worth X amount of money, and you can't really live your life?
If he were to confess, I did it. He's not getting out.
Right.
You know.
That's right. Well, yeah, no, I can't
And
go there.
James
No.
King says you have to look at the evidence and ask if it makes any sense in any way that he did it. And like I said, I've still not seen anything that points the finger at Stephen for doing it. I really don't.
Well,
I do
yeah.
not see
Well,
a motive.
Emily says he would have had to do it and plant the evidence against himself. No, if he did it and the cops found her, and planted everything, that could still be a scenario. But
which is the two-step idea that I've been talking about: the murder itself, the finding of the murder, and then the planting against Stephen. You're absolutely right. If Stephen committed this, he wouldn't plant forensic evidence against himself. And he even said to Fassbender and Wiggy, because look, I would have crushed the car. Oh, he's actually agreeing with them. He goes, I would have crushed it. You think I'm going to leave it on my property for the 31st, for the 1st, for the 2nd, for the 3rd, for the 5th, half day of the 5th, and then leave to Crivets? No, he's not going to do that.
Oh.
No.
No,
I'm gonna.
T1 sorry, Jack. T1 says, I'm just asking the tough questions, you all. Don't be hating.
Can see. No, I'm gonna have to see something different than what I've seen before.
Well, never mind.
No, go ahead.
Well, if he was greedy, he wouldn't have killed Teresa because he was coming into a bunch of money.
That's right. One way or the other. Well, a lot of people, especially the newer people, they don't. I'm not really going to cover it too much here because I'm going to get us out of here because I know Susan's hungry. I know I am too.
Yeah.
But, the depositions and the year of 2005 is a really interesting year and really interesting for the state because of the situation surrounding Gregory Allen. And this information is not out there. And probably when we go through this, I'm probably going to drag that documentation out just to show people so they understand that Gregory Allen was implicated in a 1991 cold case where he brutally beat the hell out of this woman and he sexually assaulted her. They went in June of 2005, took his DNA for comparison. It was him. In September of 2005, an arrest warrant was written to arrest him for it. The state was well aware of that. This was in the middle of the depositions. Many people don't know that.
Not long before Teresa was killed.
That's right. And they sure didn't want that information getting loose.
It did not come out in the press. They didn't arrest him or charge him until
27 months. 27 months.
In prison already, but yeah.
Yeah.
They
I never heard of it.
Yeah.
I never heard of such. 27 months they waited to actually go charge him and take him back to Minnesota. And he really got away with, it was a ridiculous what he got out of that because he got to serve his time concurrently, not consecutively. So they didn't want that information by chance getting out. They would have destroyed the state's end of it. It would have rolled right back to Dennis Vogel and Tom Kasorik because they alibied him, but they basically let him off scot-free in 85. Even Vogel alibied him. Got that documentation too, where that parole officer said, no one contacted this office. No. Don't know what you're talking about. So.
Anthony House has got a question, quick question, Jack.
Yep,
Would Brendan confess tomorrow, do you think, if release was granted? No, I don't. Me personally, no, I don't.
No.
He's got too many people behind him now that believes him and what he's done. And I don't believe it had anything to do with it at all. Absolutely not. So I don't think he would agree to it either.
And Kelly McGallion says, was Gregory Allen out of prison when TH went missing? No, he was in prison. However, wasn't he transferred?
He was.
Right around that time?
Yeah, there was some kind of issue that, yep, that's right, go ahead.
Where was he transferred to?
Manitowoc.
Of course. Yeah.
Are those questions surrounding that, and they're, I can't say that they're bad questions, but there was some kind of, I don't know what, but he was transferred to Manitowoc County Jail for like 10 days or something. I can't remember exactly. I know Christina got all that information, which is really strange. I mean, he was in a state prison, so I mean, it's not beyond the realm. But I would
The
think
new
that,
charges came out of Minnesota, didn't they?
yeah, Hennepin County, Minnesota.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Very, God, the coincidences, if you can call them that in this case, they just don't stop.
No, it's so complicated. It's such a crazy freaking case. It's just insane.
Yeah.
The amount of events that you almost can't define it. I can't. Anyway. All right. So, if there's any more questions, you better get them out there because I'm going to end this puppy and we're going to get out of here and have some pizza. Got pizza tonight, Papa John's.
Woohoo!
Yep. And the recent episode of Defense. Let's see. Let's read this here from Rumor. Go ahead.
In recent episodes of Defence Diaries, they had a lot of nice things to say about foul play. It was great to hear. Oh, that's very nice.
Oh, they did.
Yeah.
I listened to it. Yeah.
I've only made it to episode 3. I've not made it that far. I know that they talked quite a bit, or they've talked some about the Reddit sub TikTok Manitowoc because we got a lot of documentation and so forth. That was nice. They credit
They were
people
talking about our library and how great it was to have all the info there, and yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome.
Can someone put a link to that podcast in the chat? That'd be awesome.
Not sure. Have you got it handy, Susan?
That is Spotify, I think.
We've got a new person who's joined us in chat. Nance Hand. Hi, Nance Hand. Nice to see you. Thanks for coming to Foul Play. If Stephen was really guilty, there would be no need for KK press conference and there would be evidence that did not have problems at every turn.
Yep.
Yes, I completely agree. Completely agree. If there was more evidence to prove that Stephen had did it, Kratz and that would have used it. 1000%. They would have used every single bit if there was any proof that Stephen did it. But they didn't have any proof, so they had to fabricate it and frame him for it to get the proof. Because remember, DNA got him off for his first wrongful conviction. So in my opinion, the way they were thinking, and this is my opinion and my speculation, is that DNA got Stephen off the first time, so DNA was going to put him away the second time, and that's why they planted his DNA. That's just my thoughts and my opinion.
I can't disagree with that. I think that, I said it last night, I'll say it again before we leave, I think that there was a directive, from the top, whoever you want to call the top, I don't care who you call it from. This guy did it. We just got to make sure we found the evidence to make sure we can, get the job done. Nothing directed specific to any one person. A few people took action. Sherry Culhane was in the lab to cover all the bases. I mean, you just look at what we went through with the bullet. I mean, my God. Anyway. So you had a couple of people that took extra action. This is not a rare event, by the way. It's happened so many times I've lost count. Boom, guilty. Look at what all the jury never heard, never got to see. We're far more informed than the jury ever was. That's kind of unfair, I guess, maybe, but you can only get so much in a trial. But there was a lot that they wouldn't allow. There was a lot that Kratz did not turn over that he had. So, anyway. Not going to belabor that. We can get into the more at a different time. So, this coming Saturday, we're going to start a new series with, what's it called, Susan? My mind just went blank.
Fiction Conviction.
Conviction.
Is that it?
Yep.
Yeah.
I think that's
Yeah.
right. Yep. This
Yep,
is where we
that's
do
right.
this is where we start our rebuttal of convicting a murder. And reading with the crew is going to be on hold. We'll see how this works out with the regular open mic on Sunday. I'm probably going to keep it separate because, this is I'll talk to Doc and others about this, but how we're going to present it. But I think we're going to start on episode 8. Is that right, Doc? We've pretty much rounded out episode 7 with everything. I've got the clips all done. We're going to start with episode 8.
I think we need to hit it because now it's very, very topical. I
Yeah.
think it'll be a bit of a mistake if we go back to episode number 1.
I agree.
I think we need to hit 8, 9, and 10 as it happens.
Yeah, the problem with episode 8, though, is it's going to take us a year to get. I'm kidding. But there's a lot in episode 8. Everybody got to admit that.
Well, have a look at what we've done. We've actually split it in 2 separate pieces. We can do the same. We can do the regular slot that I do reading with the crew. Then we can spill over into this time slot, do further extensions, do further discussions, bring a lot more people in. I like that approach. We can cover what, nearly 8 hours worth of stuff. I reckon that's I reckon it's a winner.
It's not a bad idea. Alrighty, folks. I'm going to say I appreciate everybody that's came along, asked the questions, have the conversation. Do your own research. Go read. Don't get in the library, and don't believe us. Don't believe me. Don't believe anybody. Go do your own research. Make your own conclusions. No one here is going to be upset.
It's interesting as hell.
It is. I mean, I'm not physically or emotionally tied to Stephen. Or I am a little bit to Brendan because I got children his age. But we just want the truth. We want the full truth, and we're not there.
T1, I gotta read this. CAM edited out the S at the beginning of their acronym. Just saying.
Oh my God. See, you're a rascal, man. You are.
Oh, you're funny.
Dreamscape is asking, do I have to watch it in order to understand your new show? Do I? No.
No.
No, not really. I think we're going to break it.
The full gist of it.
Yeah, I think we're going to break it down enough. You're going to understand. We're not going to. We're not doing this to cheat them or to be unfair. We're doing it to be as unbiased as we can possibly be with what they present and our rebuttal to that. I think that's the only way we can do it, right, Doc and everybody? I mean,
correct. We've given it due time. We've given it many, many, many hours. We've taken our time. I think we've done a superb job.
Yep, I agree. All righty, folks. With that said, I'm going to end it here. Hopefully I did it again. You rascal. Hold on. I don't know why it's doing that. Try this again. Remember it did it last night too.
Mm-hmm. Good night, y'all.
Not yet. Try that again. Come on. I'm going to have to figure this out because it's really irritating me now. There we go. Now I'm going to say, this has been a Foul Play production.